Thank you. Good morning, everybody. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever the property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies as those terms are defined in the Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant and or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Okay, before we get to the first item, are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have one file to close today. It's number 177 Snowden Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion? Ms. Casson?
A motion to close the file.
Okay, second? Second by Ms. Sankar Peralta. Confirmed? All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. And do we have some minutes to adopt from our previous hearing?
Mr. Chair, we have minutes of April 11th.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion? Mr. Fazeli?
I'll move a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion by Mr. Fazeli, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for the items in the morning time slot? Okay, seeing as there are none, we are ready to, actually, I should ask, are there any deferral requests this morning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have 2 deferral requests this morning. The first one is item number 3,
Okay.
8 Camborne Avenue. We'll look for the agent.
Yep, let's deal with that. Do we have the agent online or in person? Great, thank you.
Yes, my name is Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owner.
Okay, can we repeat that, just so staff can get that information?
Sure. My
There we
name
go.
is Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owner.
Okay, thank you. And you're requesting a deferral?
Yes, we communicate with planning staff. We have made revisions in accordance with the recommendations, after which they're okay with the proposal. But when we submitted the drawings to the zoning examiner, they had actually missed a couple of variances. So we would request deferral to get that ironed out.
Okay, thank you. And I see no other speakers for this item. Okay, if there are no other speakers, we'll move this into committee. Ms. Casson?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm willing to make a motion to defer this application to give the applicant time to confirm the variances that they need.
Okay, very well. Do I have a seconder? Okay, that's second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay, the motion is approved. We have a deferral on that. Okay, and we have another item now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have another deferral request this morning. It's item number 4, 156 MCRAE. And we'll look for Kelly Lem.
Yes, I am here.
Could you please state your name and address for us?
My name is Kelly Lem. I am at 201 Wickseed Avenue. I am the agent for the owners.
Okay, and I believe you're requesting a deferral of the application this morning?
Yes, I am. It was at the request of committee adjustment that this project be deferred because there was a late variance added to the project by the city. And at that time, the public notices have already been mailed out.
The request was made by the Committee of Adjustment, or the request was made by Community Planning?
I would say the committee adjustment staff. That's who I received the notice that there was a variance added by the zoning examiner late, and this project had to be deferred because of that.
Okay, fair enough. And I don't see any other speakers to this item. Nobody here for that item? Okay, so if that's the case, let's move this into committee. Oh,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move a motion to defer the application that gives the time to the applicant to goes over the staff request.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fazeli. We've got a motion for deferral. Second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries, and we have a deferral. Item number 4.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I just confirm there are no other deferrals in the morning.
There are no other deferrals in the morning, Mr. Chair. We can start with item number 1.
Okay, fantastic. Item number 1, 174 Cameron Avenue. This is an application to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 undersized residential lots to construct new dwellings. With that consent, there are some variances for lot area, lot frontage, west side yard setback, porch, cold room and canopy encroachment into a side yard setback, front yard landscaping, east main wall height, west main wall height, and lot coverage. On file, I have materials from the applicant, as well as a memo from Engineering and Construction Services, an email from Heritage Planning, an email from Marine and Natural Feature Protection, and an email from City Planning. As well, I have a memorandum from Urban Forestry. We've got, oh, good morning.
Good morning.
We've got our applicant, Mr. Binkowski,
Correct, sir.
and your address for us.
301 Keewatin Avenue.
Thank you. And I do see, and as well, I see we've got a neighbor as well, either online or in person today. Is that the case? We do, okay. Mr. Binkowski, I'm going to ask for a brief presentation from you.
Yes. So I submitted some support material, kind of addressing the lot frontage and the massing as to how the proposed dwellings would fit within the character of the neighborhood. This portion of Cameron really has 3 separate zonings, minimum lot frontages as we come in from Yonge Street. And that kind of continues on this portion south of Shepherd, west of Yonge Street. So the character of this pocket is already changing and has changed because of these 3 different lot frontages, as well as associated lot areas that are there. So if we go to page 2 of my support material, so unlike most properties in this neighborhood, this actually isn't a 50-foot lot or a 15.24 meter lot. This is actually a 56-foot lot. And that might be indicative of the planning report you have that does not have any objection to the proposal that is before you. So what I've done here is I've taken the blocks as we go towards Yonge, along Cameron on the north and the south, to kind of demonstrate what that prevailing frontage is and how that massing relates to it. So as we see on the block here, I've outlined in red the properties that kind of create that prevailing character of the 12.2 meter frontage, I'm calling it, along this block itself. So how that now relates to what is being proposed before you today, the existing lot that is there today is about 4.9 meters larger than that prevailing character. Whereas the proposal would be a difference of about 3.65 meters. And I want to put not a lot of weight into those numbers there itself, but actually how that would translate and how that would look on the ground in terms of what is being proposed and how it fits within the neighborhood itself. This would not be the smallest lot along this stretch of Cameron. There is a 7.62 meter vacant lot that is to the east of the property. If we go to page 2, please. So right now we have a massing relationship of 2 newer dwellings to the west with this existing smaller bungalow that is there today. This is a situation that is common throughout this part of Cameron and really this stretch of south of Shepherd, west of Yonge Street, where we have new builds next to existing dwellings and existing dwellings that are 2 stories next to new builds also. If we can go to page 3, please. So I've created 2 massing diagrams. This is all from the City of Toronto spatial data that's offered to us. What I've done on the top left is I've shown what the massing of a permitted dwelling could be with the side yard setbacks as well as the coverage and how that fits within the neighborhood. Whereas on the right, I've taken the proposed severance with the massing and to demonstrate how that would look. Now, it's tougher in the perspective view to see it. It's a lot easier, I believe, in the flat elevations I produced at the bottom to show how that massing would fit with what's on the block itself. So again, to translate that into the numbers at the top, the permitted massing with the side yard setback would be 1.84 meters wider than that next widest house on this block in terms of the massing. So the massing of what we're proposing with the reduced lot frontage as well as lot area, in my opinion, is more indicative of what is on the block today. And I'm going to completely run out of time. If we go to the next page, please. I've also taken, again, this 2-block stretch of Cameron and shown some of that prevailing massing of newer dwellings adjacent to bungalows, how they're massed and how it fits. The introduction of these two dwellings on a reduced lot frontage is a situation we see throughout the neighborhood of smaller houses next to larger houses, next to bungalows. If we could continue one more, please. I've also just, in terms of the side yard setbacks, again, this is all from the City of Toronto data, just measured to show that the reduction in the interior side yard setback we're proposing does exist on the street. This, again, is an introduction of a side yard situation that isn't relevant. And I would also say it is only the interior side yard setback we're requesting the reduction on. The exteriors are as per the zoning bylaw. Now, that reduction of the interior side yard setback really relates, if we go one more down, please, to variances 3, 4, 5, and 10. Essentially, 3, 4, 5, and 10 say the projections, the decks, the cold cellars, all have to just be in line with what the zoning bylaw requirement is for that side yard setback. Coincidentally, if we had flipped the houses the other way, these would not be variances because those projections would be as per the zoning bylaw with that setback. So again, that is only due to the location of where we put the porch and the entrance and that cold cellar below, which is, again, between the two dwellings. I have just one more, maybe quick one.
Final words, okay.
Just about the in terms of the main wall height, how it relates with the change of grade. We can see there is a change of grade, and I'll go as fast as I can. The last one would just be the elevated deck at the rear. It is only 1.39 meters above grade. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Okay, no questions at this time. Let's have up our next speaker.
Hi, is this, am I the next speaker? Paulo Gallucci?
Yes, you are. Please state your address for us,
Yeah.
Mr. Gallucci.
Sure, I am, yeah, so I'll read my name. My name is Paolo Gallucci. I'm at 168 Cameron Avenue. I am the house just to the east of 174 Cameron Avenue. So the house next door, right there, yep. So I'm right there. So I have a few questions with regards to this. And the first question is around the subdividing. As was sort of outlined by the speaker before, the area is quite mixed. And usually what's happened is to the east of Tudor, going to Yonge Street, homes have been able to be built which had about a minimum of 25 frontage. And historically, homes that are on the west side, which encompasses 174 and my house, you weren't able to build. So what I'm trying to understand is this setting a precedent? Because if we subdivide the lot and we create, whether it's 26 frontage, 25 frontage, is this going to be now anybody can subdivide, right? Or is this a one-off? So I'm trying to understand what the precedent setting here is with regards to that. Do we answer after every question, or do I outline everything?
This is your time now to outline everything, and then these questions I will get turned back to the agent or applicant, and they will have a chance to respond.
Okay. Yeah. So the real thing is, I'm not, and I'm putting it on record, I'm not opposing the subdivision. I myself have a 55 front lot as well, which is next door. So if we're going to start and be able to subdivide, then I want to understand that this is a precedent that's going to be set. That's all it is. The other thing is the property itself and the buildings. I noticed there's a 1.2 meter from my property line, which is about 4 feet if I do my calculations based on survey. And I just want to make sure, I assume those are within bylaws, right? In terms of the bylaws that have been set by the City of Toronto, in terms of distance from the property line. The other piece is slope of the roof. Because of the design of the house, the sloping is going from west to east down. And because of that, I just want to make sure from a water drainage standpoint that there's not, that's been taken into account, and that there's going not to be excessive water overflow, which then is going to go into my property next door. So I want to make sure that that's been taken care of, just because of the design, the way that the roof has been designed. And then the other piece, which has been noted about the grading is sloping from the back to the front. And again, I want to make sure that grading, if it's going from back to front, is not then overflowing into my property as well, that there's proper design from a grading standpoint, that water is contained within that property. So with these changes, I just want to make sure that there's no impact. And those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. I see we did have another speaker, but I believe they've indicated that they're not going to speak today. So,
Mr. Chair, that was the owner of the property.
oh, thank you for the.
There was some confusion about watching it on YouTube or registering. So they registered here, and I spoke to them yesterday. I said, I'll just send you the YouTube link.
All right. Well, then, Mr. Benkowski, seeing as we have no questions for the previous speaker, I'm going to turn it back to you to respond and hopefully provide some clarification to some of the concerns that were raised.
First thing with the setback, the 1.2 meter setback is the zoning bylaw requirement. We have no request for the exterior side yards. In terms of the grading and drainage, again, it would be a building permit stage if this is meritorious, where they would have to demonstrate they can contain all the water on the property. I know it does look like an extreme slope, but really any slope would create the same type of water runoff, regardless of that feature. I actually think that call may have turned into be a call of support for the project from what he said at the beginning. But in terms of the idea of precedence, from a planning perspective, I think you look at every application individually and its merits. We look at what's happened in a neighborhood as a trend of what has taken place and where a neighborhood might be going. Again, with the associated variances we have, with a modest coverage increase, really with a reduction in just the side yards in the interior. Again, in that instance, I believe the built form fits in. And I think when we're assessing a severance and a consent, it's not only the frontage in the lot area, but it's also that massing of, in my opinion, how that's going to fit on the streetscape and how that's going to look in relation to everything else there. And I think in this instance, through some of the materials I submitted, I've demonstrated that this massing will fit with what's in the neighborhood today.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. There's no questions at this time. We're ready to move into committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benkowski. Okay. Yes, Ms. Sankar Peralta.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm ready for a motion, Chair. I've heard what Mr. Benskowski has indicated, and I do find that this application, based on the submission and evidence that he has shown to demonstrate that the character of the neighborhood seems quite similar to what he's proposing, as well as looking at the minor variances and feeling that they are deemed minor, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application, and based on the fact that there was also no comments from staff report except certain conditions, and the objection came in with issues around drainage and water, which is not the purview of this committee, I'll put forward again that a motion to approve this application. I'm going to approve the consent to sever, as well as the variances for Part 1 and 2. No heritage, I will apply forestry conditions for that, as well as the staff report of April 26th having some standard conditions and conditions of engineering as well. And that's my motion.
And we did get the forestry as well, I heard. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I see that second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2. I think she caught. So just a matter of clarification. Okay. I don't see any. It was just a matter of clarification. Is that's all resolved? Or do you? Yeah. Okay. That's what I have. Okay. It was. Okay, thanks. Okay, sorry about that. Item number 2, number 12, KAINONA Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling. We've got variances for a front yard setback, south side yard setback, building length, building depth, lot coverage, front yard landscaping, platform encroachment into a front yard setback, and driveway width. On file, I have material from the applicant, as well as a memo from Urban Forestry, a letter of opposition from number 14, KAINONA Avenue, and form letters of support from number 7, 8, 11, and 16, KAINONA Avenue. Do we have the agent with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name and address for us?
Yeah, it's Sarah Ifra, and it's 2675 A like Apple, Bathurst Street, Toronto, M6B0A7.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got the timer up on the clock. I'm going to ask for a brief presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps we want to check if there's any changes first.
Sure, yes. I should note, are there any changes to the application?
Yes, I'm going to modify variance number 3 and variance number 4
Okay,
to 27.96.
27.96, yep.
Yep. And then variance number 5 also changes due to the length reduction, and that becomes 36.46.
Okay, just to clarify, variance number 3 and 4 are both being amended, and they're both being amended to 27.96?
Yes.
Okay, and then the third variance is, please just repeat that for us.
Yeah, it's number 5,
Okay,
and that's going to 36.46% coverage.
okay, thank you. Okay, we've got those amendments. It's a modified application. I see that, yeah. Yeah. So let's clarify. I'll ask you. I'll give you your 5 minutes. I'm sure we'll have we may have questions for you, but let's get the timer up and give the agent an opportunity to present.
Okay. So yes, that you've got my presentation in front of you as well. I did send some documentation explaining a little bit behind why we designed a bungalow, which then incurred our length slash coverage variance. The length, I guess, is kind of the biggest number that I would definitely want to jump into and discuss. I'll go briefly through all of them. The front yard setback, I just want to be clear that it's 6.66 only for a very small portion there at the front. You can almost see that in our rendering drawing, which is just a little bump out that's basically not 1 story high. The rest of our front yard is 7.57 and 7.95 to actually the garage portion. The required side yard setback of 1.8, we've only gone to 1.2 in 2 instances there on the south side. The rest of the side yards maintain the 1.8 meters on the other, the rest of that wall on the other side of the house. When we get to number 3, when we're talking about the length, so I've modified that to 27.96. That should be noted that goes all the way from our front bump out to all the way back at the bow window of the longest length. But I want to be clear, on the north side, the wall that's against the property line at 6 feet side yard setback is 26.12 meters because our bump out is in the center there at the front, and the bow window sits kind of set in as well. And on the south side, we're at 24.31. No, I like that other drawing better. Okay, and then the same applies. You can see that in the corner there on my modified site plan there. The same applies to variance number 4. Then variance number 5, when we talk about the coverage, again, we reduce that coverage to 36.46, which you can see at the top of this drawing. I do have others in the area that I personally have had approved. It should be noted also, when we're talking about numbers here, both for length and coverage, this is essentially a 1-story bungalow house with some space in the roof up at the front for the first 15.5 meters. It's not even a full 17-meter length. So the impact of the length and the coverage, I would venture to say, is less impactful with a wall height of 12.5 feet as opposed to a 2-story wall. So I want to be sure that that's something that we keep in our minds. Variance number 6 is basically for a 2-car drive. Yes, we have a variance for some of the hardscape there, but we don't have a softscape variance. So it's a little bit of a technical thing. Again, I really don't believe with the size of the lot, it has any impact on the neighbors, and drainage we deal through our permit process. In terms of variance number 7, we're talking about the little porch there at the front, the part that bumps out in front of the front door. Again, I don't agree exactly how this was measured because we're allowed to have 2.5 meters of a projection. So technically, in my mind, we're only a half a meter over, but that's that's fine. It's at grade, lower than the current porches, and it's uncovered. So again, I don't think that has any negative impact both on the house itself, the neighbors, or the neighborhood. And then number 8 refers to the driveway. We're talking about 4 inches. So that, again, it's a 2-car drive. Instead of 6 meters, we've got 6.1. Again, to allow the space for the 2 cars happens to be that brings us to, a certain number in feet and inches, which worked well for the landscaping in terms of how to get that done and have access. So that's really what that variance is for. In terms of, again, I just want to, if we go to the other supporting documentation that shows the side elevations, so that was the first one I had sent a little ways back. I just want to be clear that we've got essentially, yeah, you can scroll down there. We've got essentially at the front, our little portico spot. Okay, you can stop right there. The little portico all the way to the left. Then we've got our little bump out that you can see is just over 6 meters. Then our portion that has some space within the roof for some bedrooms for guests, that we're at 8 meters under a regular 2-story height. And then at the back, we have a wall height of 3.79, which is 12.5 feet, with an overall roof height of 18 5'3" or 5.58, and then our little bow window for the last little bit. And again, we've reduced this size slightly. This was drawn before we reduced. So
Okay,
I
final
just
words?
want you to see that undulation. That's all I've got. If there are questions, but I wanted to be clear about the undulation of the roof.
Okay. Maybe I'll hold my question and right now, but I do have a question with respect to the. I think that there's an adjacent property, I believe 2 doors over, with that was brought up, and the planning rationale is sort of the. But I'll ask you about that. But I want to ask my colleagues if they have any questions at this time.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, Mr.
For
Fazal?
the applicants. As you see on the staff report, they are referring to variance number 2 and 3. And they're asking for 25.40, and you mentioned that 27.96. So if we were to approve, for example, this application with, for example, with that 25.40, first, my question is, why you don't want to change it to that? Like, what is the rationale behind it? And if you are changing it, how is going to change your application in terms of other variances?
So, so that's for variance number 3 and 4, which was the length and the depth. I did have discussions with planning staff. I did look at this with my clients. To pull it down to that number would end up, we would lose the master bedroom, which is really what we need. My client had a stroke and she has mobility issues. And she's looking to have her, basically all of her living space on the main floor. The difference between ours and a couple doors down is we have virtually, no second story. We've got some space in the roof up at the front, whereas they have more of a second story. So in terms of kind of comparison between the two, there is some comparison, but that is definitely more an impact, a more impactful house due to the 2 stories throughout, much more of that footprint. When I did look around though, I didn't have, and again, staff didn't have necessarily these approvals either, because depends on when they were done and where they're filed and what have you, and under which bylaw. But if you look just behind our street on Gladiola, there's 2 relatively new houses. I mean, I've been around for a long time, so relatively new. It could have been done in 1985 or 1990. One of them looks like it was probably in the 2000s. But both of those are at much higher numbers than what we're looking at. And the houses themselves are more 2-story looking. But when you look at them from the street, and you kind of see them with regard to their neighbors, I mean, they're there, they're built, they're approved. And they're not that imposing. And I would venture to say mine will be less imposing, as we're really, really, really under the 10 meters for our portion that has some bedrooms. And then we're literally 1 story, 12 foot, 5.5 inches for our wall for the majority of this house. There's also a number of houses in the neighborhood that I was able to find and measure that were, again, in the lengths, anything from 42, 33.5, 26.46, 25.29, 25.14, 25.78. Again, some of these are even 2-story dwellings with those numbers. So I did look around. It seems to be in this neighborhood, and even as an architect that's, working with people, sometimes for the second time, but sometimes it's the first time when they're older and they don't necessarily want to move to assisted living at that point. They are asking for bungalows. They are looking to get a master bedroom on the ground floor. So in this neighborhood, there actually is a number of them that were built that way previous to this, and a number of them that have had extensions and things like that that create a very similar plan. When I'm looking at the property and the lot and the circumstances, I'm also looking at neighbors to the north and neighbors to the south and shade and shadow and things like that. And I normally come in here with 2- and 3-story houses, so this is a little bit different in this case, but it does not cast shadow. The impact of the length on this one is not the same impact as a house that has 2 stories or even more 2-story than what I've got here. So that's kind of, I would say the comparison really between the two, and then looking around the neighborhood. So I know staff had that one, house that they were talking about, but I did take a good look around the neighborhood, and I did have discussions, and we did make some compromise. Now, if I were to change it, to try to bring it down to that number, like I said, I would lose that master bedroom. I really can't see how I can get 10 to 12 feet off the house without losing a full room. And
Okay,
for
I'm gonna
for the
ask you just
client's
to wrap
needs.
up there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to take advantage of it. Just the member asked a question. Let's
Yeah,
just get
for the
keep it to
client's
the
needs,
point.
I just don't see,
Ve-
I just don't see how I could get it to 25.4.
Fair enough. I just have a very a technical question. Were you able to
Yep.
pull the building depth at number 8 that you used as a comparison? Do you know the building depth of that property?
Yeah, 25.40.
25
The depth of the
point.
property? Wait, the depth of the property or the depth of the house?
The depth of the depth of the house at number 8.
Yeah, it's what's noted in the staff report. It's 25.40.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Yes, I've got a question from my colleague, Ms. Sankar Peralta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question, and while I'm really empathetic for the reasoning of having this house and the master bedroom to facilitate someone who's an elder, and I feel very strongly about that. However, I do have a job to do, and so I do need to ask the question, still piggybacking onto what my colleague, Member Fazeli had said about the proposed the proposition from staff report to have this building length reduced to 25.4 meters, being only one house that they found, which was number 8, which you've just exclaimed is 25.4 meters. Do you have anything else? And in looking at your package here, I don't really see comparative studies of the entire neighborhood. You've said that you've seen other areas, but where exactly, where are they located? Is it within the context of that actual street? Sometimes the character of a neighborhood is the street, or sometimes it's just that small surrounding area. Right now, I only have in mind number 8 of that
So,
street.
if we,
can you
exactly, if
explain?
we zoom in
Yeah.
there, if we zoom in there on the yellow, which is a map from the city, you can see I've noted the lengths. The street right behind them there to the left-hand side is Gladiola. So there's 2 of them there. And then there's a little south on the streets on Bonaccord, on Clanton Park, and on Josephine. You can see some of the other lengths there. Again, why those don't necessarily have approval letters that came up when I searched and when Julia searched, the planner in the city, we are not sure why they didn't come up, but those are the lengths that are there. Those are the footprints that are there. Those are the studies that I did. I've been to the site. I've been to the area. I do know the area well. Because I've worked on Banton and Clanton and Losmore. So these are the ones that are comparative, and they are in the neighborhood, and some of them are relatively new, and some of them exist. So I know that they spoke of the one, but there are definitely more. And that's shown on this drawing and on the list. If you scroll down a little bit, just so you can see the list above, you can see the list of the addresses there. And we're not talking 6 streets away. We're talking within the the immediate area. No, scroll, maybe the other way up.
Okay.
There you go. Yep.
Does that help? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to move on to the next speaker. Do we have Mr. Singer here? Yeah, if you can please come down to the podium. Good morning. Just state your name and address for us when you get a chance.
My name is David Singer. I am the resident of 14 KAINONA.
Okay.
So good morning, respected members of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is David Singer. Myself, my wife Melissa, and our 2 daughters live at the home at 14 KAINONA. I represent my family and our community that greatly values the unique and rare green space we are fortunate to have on our street. These values deserve careful consideration, especially in the face of a development that does not respect the existing physical character of our street, nor is it scaled to the other existing developments, issues that we note are specifically acknowledged in your staff report. With respect to process, many of my neighbors, including those adjacent and even across the street, have expressed deep concerns in their submissions, having been misled by the owners and their representatives about the scale of the proposed build, falsely reported indications of neighborly support in order to garner their own support, and disregard for environmental bylaws, particularly concerning the mature trees on the property. As a very specific example, there is clearly documented mulberry tree that is listed in the arborist report when we built our home at 14 KAINONA just in 2016, which was located just in the backyard on the adjacent property line at 12 KAINONA. The city deemed it required tree protection during our construction. Please note this tree and many other mature trees documented in images that I have that I can't share apparently, are absent from the arborist report submitted by 12 KAINONA. In early December, we and our other neighbors witnessed the mulberry tree and other mature trees being cut down by a company working in association with a representative from 12 KAINONA. We are wondering why, if these actions of cutting down these trees, if appropriate, why was it not documented in the arborist report? The removal of these trees and their omission from the report appears to contravene city bylaws and also represents a profound loss to the community's ecological assets. In addition, due to the property owner's clear disregard for bylaws in favor of convenience and expediency, we now have serious concerns and a lack of trust in the potential future actions of the owners of 12 KAINONA. I would like to now address the scale of the variances requested for the project. While there may be several examples in the wider neighborhood, the variances requested far exceed the recent builds, very recent builds, and compromise the existing character of our street. Specifically, the proposed structure at 12 KAINONA extends nearly 30 feet beyond the edge of our family's newly built home at 14 KAINONA, and while only one story is over 18 feet high, I would argue that visual impact is not exclusive to wall height. And in addition to the length, it is, with existing structures, sometimes even as much as 40 feet beyond our neighbors' homes that range all the way from 10 KAINONA down to 20 KAINONA, nearly our entire block. And with excessive lot coverage, even with the modification, roughly 37% versus the established 30% for our neighborhood, this is an increase of over 20% that's being requested. There's precedent with several recent builds, including our own at 14 KAINONA and our neighbors at 10 and 16, whose owners were careful to preserve the shared visual and physical space that is foundational to our street's existing character. The assertion that the house at 8 KAINONA, which is roughly already, as mentioned, 3.5 meters shorter, 11 feet, serves as a precedent is fundamentally flawed due to its location at the street's end, and on one side at least, separated by around 70 feet of backyard and tree coverage from the houses on the adjacent street at Clanton Park, significantly reducing its impact compared to the central and more intrusive placement at 12 KAINONA. The variances requested are neither consistent with prevailing character and policies nor reinforce the stability of our community. The justifications for these variances due to mobility issues resulting from a recent health condition from one of the owners does warrant empathy. We do note that the proposed main floor plan includes extensive non-essential features such as a main floor second kitchen with a very large pantry, a study, multiple large living spaces, which could reasonably be sized smaller and are relocated to the main floor or second floor, or to the basement, which we know could be easily accessible by their proposed elevator. The proposed overextension into luxury amenities seems to go beyond basic accessibility needs and calls into question the genuine necessity of such extensive variances, which would result in massification, and whether they are in the best interest of the community or simply the preferences of the proponent. And on a personal note, I just want to mention, we and our neighbors, we love and value our green space. The current proposal of 12 KAINONA prioritizes excessive development over community and environmental harmony. I highlight again that the staff report indicated their clear reservations and recommendations for significant modifications, or that the variances should be refused outright. Therefore, I urge the committee to uphold the integrity of our street, KAINONA Avenue, by refusing these variances or requiring substantial modifications to maintain the existing character of our street, respecting both the land and each other. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singer, and well-timed, I might say. Any questions? Yes, it looks like we have a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. I just wanted to double check. You are the direct neighbor right next door.
Correct.
So you're the most impacted at this time. I also wanted to double check with you. So we've seen a staff report that has indicated the character of the neighborhood, not having as many, proposed development in this massing. The highest there is at 25.40 at number 8. Now, the agent has shared a sort of a screenshot that seems not exactly on the street itself, but surrounding neighborhoods here and there. I would like your testimony per se or observation of the neighborhood to tell me if that is indeed correct, what the staff report is indicating. What's your idea of the character of the neighborhood, and does this meet that variance, that test?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to that. If you were to come to our neighborhood and look across the backyards of our street, it is a beautiful stretch of green space, and many of us have moved there and chose to build there even very recently within the last 7, 8 years, bought these properties because of this green space. Using, as I mentioned, 8 KAINONA Avenue as a precedence for this amazing, beautiful green space across all of the lots of our neighborhood, I don't think is a reasonable precedent because it is on the end of the street and it backs onto the adjacent street. It's not obstructing. My concern, of course, is that this sets, even beyond us, a precedent for our other neighbors that are going to be blocked in with these larger, deeper houses that are quite intrusive into this green space. If you look at the actual plans, it actually extends. They're beautiful, deep lots, and this is extending, with the proposed porch, about 2/3 of the way through our backyard. It's extensive. The increase from 30% to 37% is a 20% increase. And I'm going to be, as neighbors, obviously directly impacted, there's going to be close to a 30-foot wall deep into my lot that I'm going to be looking at. So no, I don't agree that this was in the character of our street at all. And I really hope, these variances are established for a reason. They are to determine the character of these neighborhoods and protect the neighbors. And we built with that in mind. Our neighbors next door to us at 16 KAINONA built with that in mind. And we were very sensitive to our neighbors about this. That depth is important to all of us, and it is of great concern.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, no questions at this time. Okay, thank you, Mr. Singer. I believe we have another speaker. We have Mr. Grodzinski. Mr. and Mrs. Grodzinski. We have them online.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Just state your name and address for us.
Sorry. Rona and Daniel Grodzinski. We are at number 10 KAINONA. So we are the other side from Melissa and David Singer.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm not going to presentation for this. All I wanted to add was that having discussed this with them, we agree with everything he said, and that will be sufficient. He's covered it in great and very accurate detail, and really at this point we have nothing to add, save for the fact that we agree with what he has said.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, there's no questions. We will move on to our next speaker. Is there Ms. Harris from number 9 with us? You're unmuted. Ms. Harris? Okay. Ms. Harris, are you with us? Okay, we can't hear you. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I got her voicemail,
Okay.
trying to get an answer.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move on. All right, so I'd like to turn it back to the applicant at this. Well,
You can do that.
let's do that. Okay, thanks for helping.
My microphone didn't work in the computer.
Okay, you're on microphone right now with the committee.
Good morning.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Harris.
Okay,
The
hi.
floor is all
Sorry
yours.
about the confusion. So basically, I'm just here to support the Grudzinskis and the Singers as their homes are affected the most. I live on the other side of the street. I'm at number 9. The reason I wrote a letter of opposition and why I'm here today is that I feel that every time the city allows a house to exceed the bylaws, then the next house decides to push it, as is the case here with number 8, KAINONA being the model, but then 25.40 is not enough space, apparently, for these people. I sympathize that they are a older couple, having been a caregiver for both my parents who had cancer and moved home from Los Angeles to take care of them in a bungalow, and they had mobility issues as well. I understand this. I live in a bungalow that does not exceed much space. It's one of the original houses. In fact, it's the same shape of this house. And I understand that people need space, but a couple, they need that much space? It's questionable. Bottom line is, as neighbors in a community, we need space, we need air, we need to not be on top of each other. We don't have to push our houses to be right at the edge of the property. I am sandwiched between 2 very large homes. The house directly south of me, because of how tall it is and how far back they built, because the variances were given to them. I don't get sun in my house anymore. My dining room window does not get any sunlight where it previously did. And there are trees in their backyard. They planted a row of poplars. We no longer get sunlight in my home. I understand the importance of daylight to people and sunshine and fresh air. That said, they also, the new owners of number 10 KAINONA, number 12 KAINONA, purchased the home. They got possession of the home December 1st, and immediately on December 4th, cut down all the mature trees in the backyard. Why do we have bylaws? Why do we have committees and we have steps we have to apply to cut trees down and do things if then it's blatantly disregarded? I don't like this attitude of do something now, ask for forgiveness later. the city really needs to clamp down on this kind of behavior, because these were mature trees that weren't in the center of the yard. It doesn't affect the build of the house whatsoever. It does affect, it was on the borders of the property, so it didn't even have anything to do with the house being built. And as David expressed earlier, this is a neighborhood of trees and yards and beauty. And when you clear cut an entire backyard, and you can go see what it looked like if you go to Google Street View, or sorry, satellite view, you can see how many trees they actually cut down. It took them 3 days nonstop of bulldozing these trees down. I just feel the city needs to not be swayed by, oh, this woman has mobility issues. There's something larger at stake here. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Singer, for accommodating your neighbor. Do we have any questions? Okay, no questions at this time. Okay, we've gotten through all the speakers now on this item, so I'd like to call back the agent.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. So I'm going to give you your time to respond to some of the concerns that were brought up by your neighbors.
Yes. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly go through about the comments about the trees. I don't know what they're referring to. I wasn't involved at that time. I have a survey that shows trees on here, and that's what I've presented, and an arborist report as well. Beyond that, I can't comment on that. On the length that we're talking about, we're not 38 feet longer than anyone. We're 23'7" longer than number 14, which is the Singers. And we are 15'11" longer on the side of number 10, the Grudzinskis. So where the number of 38 feet came from, I'm not even sure. In terms of the difference between the 24.5 at number 8 and our proposed 27.96, at the rear of the property, the rear yard portion, we're 0.92 meters longer than they are. Because again, the length is referring to an overall, takes into account all undulations, things like that. So going more into the backyard, we're talking about 3 feet. We're not talking about 38 feet. We're not talking about 3 meters. We're talking about 0.92 meters different than number 8, which you can see on my site plan, the proposed reductions there in the bottom right-hand corner. In terms of side yards, light and air, this is a 1-story house. The sun, the light, and the air is not going to be affected. It does not cast shadow. A 12-foot 5.5-inch wall will not cast shadow on either neighbor. Number 10 is to the south of us. Number 14 is to the north, but the wall is too short to actually have any sun or shade issues. We're also set back on that side, which again, we considered very carefully, 6 feet. I didn't even bump any areas on that side to the 4 feet. And then again, when the comment was made about the side yards, we're talking about 2 small instances that are 1 story. Back in the day, and we used to have this all the time until the bylaw changed, when you were 1 story, you could be 4 feet from the property line. So I did maintain the 4 feet for those 2 small areas, which are again, behind the 2-story wall of our neighbor at number 10. I didn't come closer to them, when they're on the open area or the 1-story portion. I think that was really it. Again, like I said, the trees, I don't know. We're not talking about 30 feet. We're not talking about 2/3 of a property of our neighbors at 14 being covered. We don't have softscape variances in the back. We will not have drainage issues. We need to do that through our permit process. I thought very carefully about how we would design this home and ensured that the length was simply a length, that the impact itself would not be there by keeping it 1 story, by keeping a low profile in terms of the wall height, and then sloping the roof back so that we wouldn't impact the neighbors. And again, around the area, if we look, there are other homes of this kind of length and this kind of coverage that have been approved. A two-story home sandwiching, an existing home is very different than a one-story home that is considered light, air, and all the different things that are involved in changing, kind of the look and feel of a neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have one question.
Yes,
Thanks,
Mr. Vasili. Go ahead.
Thanks the applicants for the explanation. I understand that the neighbors mentioned about the trees, and I'd like to talk about trees, specifically the pictures I'm looking at, the one in front, and I know that there's a forestry report on that too. So
Yes.
you made a comment about the surveys. I understand that, but let's talk about the existing trees. So can you elaborate briefly about these trees? How are they going to be injured? Which ones, the one front and the back? Just very specifically on this. Thanks.
So if you zoom in on that drawing, you can see there's one at the front that's a city tree, which we've shown the protection radius for. I've maintained the driveway outside of that radius. At the rear of the property, there's one large one there up on the left-hand side, and then one kind of, partway through my backyard at the right-hand side that will need protection. The other ones are all 0.2. Again, they're not affected really through our construction. If we've got to remove them, we don't need a permit to remove them. The intention of my clients is to keep the screening. Again, the ones that are there, that are shown, that I know about, that are clear, 100%. We have to go through forestry, and we will ensure protection / if there's, the application for injury, which it could be at the front, they call it injury because we're building a driveway next to it. But you can see I've stayed outside that radius for the driveway, even with our variance for the 4 inches. Does that help? Does that answer the question?
Well, thanks for explaining. At this point, I'm fine for now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing as that there's no more questions, let's move this into committee for a brief discussion and a motion, hopefully. Yes, Ms. Sankar Peralta. Sure. If you're ready for a motion, I mean, we don't usually go into discussion, I mean, unless there's a little bit of back and forth, I mean, but I presume that you'll provide some comment for the motion that you're putting forward. So, of course, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Ifra, for presenting, as well as all of the neighbors who have come up and spoken about this. So considering this, it's really difficult because, we're in a society that wants to care for our elders and to ensure that, we're making allowances where needed, especially if there's things of a medical nature that's concerned, which is the case in this application. But I'm also concerned in grappling with that versus a responsibility on the development and, of this neighborhood and to really understanding the testimonies of, the persons who have come here today to speak. I mean, when I looked at this application to begin with, I thought that individually and cumulatively, this was really too much and it wasn't minor. I was persuaded by the staff report that said, we might be okay with this, but you should reduce it to this one specific size that matches the nearest home that could be comparable, which is number 8. I've now heard from testimony that number 8 is also a different type of lot and towards the end of the street, and it's not really lumped in with the others. I've asked about the character of the neighborhood, for which I was presented that yellow diagram, which in comparison to my 8 years at committee, that seems sparse. It's not like there were rows that were lined up with similar items. It just doesn't fit the bill for me as meeting the character of the neighborhood or being minor. I think I'm really persuaded as well by 3 powerful testimonies that I heard today from neighbors who are directly impacted. And so based on all of this and my years of experience, I think this is too much for the type of home, the size that's needed. And so, you know, I'm actually going to motion to refuse this application.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Martin. Okay, all in favor? Okay, the motion fails. Oh, opposed? Thank you. Okay, the motion fails. Anyone?
Through you, Mr. Chair, while I agree with some of what my colleague has said, I do think that there is some merit in this application. I think that it's a matter of finding a balance between what is being applied for and what staff are recommending, and I think that I'm willing to make a motion for approval subject to the recommendations of staff, that the building length and depth, sorry, I have to kind of find the number, be limited to modify variance 3 for a building length of 25.4 and modify variance 4 for a building depth of 25.4 meters. Also subject to forestry condition number 2. I believe that's it.
And I guess with variance number 5, we're modifying, I think that was for lot coverage. It was a modified, it was a modification made.
I'm sorry, as amended then.
As amended, it's 36.46, and they may even improve that with a reduced
Correct.
length and depth. Okay. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Fazeli. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion passes and is approved. Those, sorry, and opposed, I should. Oppose? Okay, Ms. Martin and Ms. Sankar Peralta opposed. Okay, the motion carries. The application as amended has been approved. Okay, I think now is a good time maybe to take 10 minutes. Okay, and when we're back, we will start with item number 5, 216 BELSIZE Drive. Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are on item number 5, 216 BELSIZE Drive. This is an application to construct a new enclosed front porch, and the existing front porch would be removed. Before us, we have variances for front yard landscaping, front yard soft landscaping, FSI, front yard setback, and the parking space length. And on file, I have material from the applicant as well as a memo from transportation. We have the applicant with us, or agent, Mr.
You do?
Dunlop. Good morning.
That's correct.
And your
morning.
address for us.
It is 600 Fleet Street in Toronto.
Okay. Just give us a moment.
No problem.
I don't see any other speakers. I'm going to ask my colleagues whether they require a full presentation.
I do want just an explanation about the floor space index, variance number 3.
Okay. So it looks like we don't require a full presentation, but we do have some brief questions for you. So I'll provide you an opportunity should you wish to say anything, and then I'm going to turn it over for some questions.
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty straightforward project we're looking to do here. So yeah, I'm free to answer any questions you might have.
I think actually I'll turn it over to my colleague to ask a question, Ms. Sankar Peralta.
Okay, so my question is really, can you tell me, why such a high floor space index? And, normally landscaping, it's not even at 50%. So I'm just wanting some explanations from your perspective as why you think that's minor.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, our proposal here is really to take an existing front porch that it's already there. There's a concrete slab and everything. It's not enclosed at the moment. So that part of the project is existing, and I think there might be some photos in there as well that can kind of show you what we're currently working with. So really what we're looking to do is just relocate the existing stair from that front porch and basically turn it 90 degrees and remove the existing sort of roof structure that's there and enclose that basically that portion of the existing concrete slab that's there. Really, in terms of existing landscaping, we're not really touching anything that's existing. A lot of what is currently there is pretty much what we're basically looking to make legal, I guess, at this point. So it's kind of one of those sort of situations. It's, I guess, just given the size of the property and the size of the house, I guess kind of the limiting factors there. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of kind of how we got there.
Thank you. That helps.
Numbers.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, could the applicant explain the variance for the parking space depth? I don't understand what is being asked, because on the plan, it looks like it's 5.6.
Yeah, so essentially this one's a little confusing. So with this bylaw, I think that the city requires the parking space to be, I think, physically on the property. But in most of these cases, it's not possible. The parking space is legal, and they do have a permit with the city for this, and to allow it to encroach into the right of way. So there's no issues there. I think it's just more of a just sort of a legality, I guess, in terms of the bylaw itself.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Martin?
So just to clarify, the existing interlocking driveway to remain, that's a right-of-way?
Just to the You can kind of see there where it says property line. Basically, to the right of that is the existing right of way. So basically, about a third of the parking space is on my client's property, and the other 2/3 is in the city right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a question for the applicant. Could you please, in regards to variance number 2, the soft landscaping, right? Front yard soft landscaping. Can you give some examples within the neighborhood that they follow this? Similar comparison with immediate neighbors?
think-
Yes.
Immediate neighbors, that one I haven't really taken too big of a dive into that one. The 75%, I think, is due to the width of the property itself. So I think anything over, I think it was 7.5 meters required. I think 75% soft landscaping. Anything below that, I think required 50%. So I think we're not likely the only neighbor on the street that would have that exact same challenge, given that there's a number of people you can kind of see in the photo there that all have parking spaces within the fronts of their property. So
Any other questions? Of course, yeah, Ms. Martin.
I'm just confused with the drawings. It says existing interlocking driveway to remain, and then you also have a parking space. So is the whole front being paved over, or it's already paved over? The whole front of the house?
that whole area is existing. So it's existing interlock,
Right,
permeable
so
pavers.
I'm just asking, that's your house is complete, or that the house and the application house is totally paved over right now. Is that right?
Not paved, it's interlocking
Well,
pavers.
interlocking is paving, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Yeah. So where is the 38% soft landscaping shown?
So there is just to the, so you can kind of see it's basically a little sliver there, the planters, and then just to the east along the property line.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you to the agent. Let's move into committee now. Ms. Casson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, unless other people have comments, I'm willing to make a motion. Anybody?
Sure.
I would like to make a motion to approve this application. I think that what is being proposed is minor. It's consistent with other development along this street in terms of what it is. The existing condition of the paved front yards predate the requirement for the soft landscaping in the City of Toronto bylaw. So I think it's pretty characteristic of the neighborhood, and it's a modest enclosure of the front porch, which I think is appropriate, has minor impact on anybody. So I think from that perspective, it's should be supported. So I'm moving that motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no forestry, so we're good.
And do I have a seconder? Okay, Mr. Fazeli seconds. All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. The motion carries. The application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, 77 Empress Avenue. The purpose of the application is a proposal to legalize a rear deck with variances for deck projection and deck setback. And on file, we have material from the applicant. Do we have the agent or applicant with us, Mr. Dunlop? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bahaduran?
Hi, yes, this is Farhan Bahaduran, and I am representing 77 Empress Avenue.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, seeing as you're the only speaker, I'm going to ask my colleagues whether they require a full presentation on this item.
Okay.
Just give us one moment.
Sure.
Okay. It doesn't appear we require a presentation, and it doesn't appear at this time we have any questions for you. So unless you have anything you'd like to add, we're ready to move into committee for a decision.
So, just that it seems like the deck, the way the deck is designed and built, it is not creating any issue or negatively affecting the adjacent neighbors, neighborhood, or streetscape. And as you've already seen in the photos, it is a light mass hidden behind the owner's rear wall with no unpleasant view impacting the openness and spacing of a streetscape. And it neither is destroying the neighbor's view by placing bulky barrier or, blocking the sunlight or invading their privacy. So I assume that it is respects the characteristics of the neighborhood while being aligned with the general intent of the related zoning bylaws. So I hope that we could get the approval on the variances.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No worries.
Okay, there's no questions. Let's move into committee. Mr. Bazzelli.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application. I believe the application satisfies the four tests. I think it is within the characteristics of neighborhood. It's minor and within the maintains the intent of zoning bylaw and official plan.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Okay, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Motion passes. The application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Item number 7, 248C Broadway Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a cantilevered balcony to the rear of the existing dwelling. Before us, I have a variance for platform encroachment. On file, I have materials from the applicant, a staff report from community planning, as well as letters of support from 242, 248B, 258, 260, and 264 Broadway Avenue, as well as letters of objection from 248, 248A, 248C, 250, 252, 252A, 256, and 264 Broadway Avenue. As well, I have an email at correspondence from Metrolinx. We have the agent with us. Welcome. Please come down to the podium and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Amanda Levy. My address is 79 Balmoral Avenue. And I am the architect who is here representing my client who's in attendance.
We just turn the, make sure your mic is on. Make sure those two,
the red light's on. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think we can hear you okay now.
Is that okay? Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay, if I could speak to my first slide.
Yeah, of course. So let's get our timer up and the floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. So if we look at the Google image, we see that the property is unique in that it's located on an L-shaped shared driveway off Broadway Avenue. And the second image shows a photograph taken from the corner of the L, looking towards the apartment buildings, and if you can see the balconies on those apartments. Second slide, please. These drawings show the proposed balcony from the rear and the west side of the property, and they also help to explain the reason why we are asking for a variance. If you look at where the opening is of the basement door, you can see that it opens at grade. And the result of opening at grade is that the City Planning Department considers the basement to be the first level of the house, not the basement level. So the balcony that we are proposing is considered to be coming off the second story of the house, not the first story of the house, and that is what is triggering the rear yard setback. The front of the house is about 5.5 feet above grade, so if our backyard was similar to what the neighbor's backyard is, we wouldn't actually be needing to ask for a variance. If we go to slide number 3, we can see that it's an unusual lot. The lot is 45 feet by 70 feet in depth, and the existing rear yard setback is only 7.6 meters to the rear wall of the house. So that means that any size balcony would encroach into that rear yard setback. Our proposed balcony will encroach 2.32 meters. The dimensions of the deck are 8 feet by 13 feet 4 inches in width. And the dimensions were based on what was needed to have 4 chairs sitting around a round table. So that was how the measurements were determined. And the use of the balcony is intended for drinking coffee on warm days so that the owners can enjoy the south-facing rear yard. Currently, the rear yard is only accessible from the main floor of the house, so the owner has to walk downstairs at the front of the house and then through the basement to get to the rear yard. And this is going to become more of an issue as they age. Slide number 4, please. These images show the views of the neighbors' properties located at 252A and 252 Broadway. The images show the deck and the enclosed sunroom on the 3rd floor of 252A. All 3 of these properties that are perpendicular to 248C Broadway all have decks. On Sunday, April the 28th, the client met with the neighbors at 252A Broadway to hear their concerns regarding the proposed balcony. They went to each other's houses so that they could see the impact on the views and the privacy. They had measuring tapes, and they measured the decks at both 252 and they found out that they would be similar in size. So this deck is not larger than existing decks in the neighborhood. The owner of 248C balcony would like the balcony, so that they can get more enjoyment out of their backyard and enjoy the fresh air from sitting on a balcony off their main living space. So they're essentially asking for a deck situation that is similar to all of the neighbors. And also, if you look at this image, you can see that on the other side, on the east side of the property, there's an apartment building, and the apartment building all has decks. So basically, everybody has a deck. And this is just a way of trying to get more enjoyment out of their rear yard. The last slide is slide number 5. And I wanted to speak to this slide specifically because this slide shows support from the neighbors for the project. My client has lived in her house for 9 years, and it was important to her that she had the support of her neighbors. As a result, she went around the neighborhood to discuss her project with them and took drawings so that they could see what the balcony would look like at the rear of the house. When I submitted my presentation material on the morning of Thursday, May 2nd, the day on which submissions were due, the green dots showed the support for the project. When I submitted the material, I was aware of only one letter of opposition that had been posted by 242A Broadway.
Final words?
Final words. Thank you, committee, for hearing my presentation.
Okay, thank you. We may have some questions as well, and you will have an opportunity to rebut after we hear from others as well. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so any questions at this time? Yes. Ms. Casson. Oh, please come down. We have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Just a quick question. 242A is on that map. I see 242, but 242A is where?
242 is south of on that perpendicular block. So what I did is I took the map that the city has posted for the property, and I added the addresses for the letter of support.
Do you see it? So 242A you referred to as being a letter of opposition, but I'm not seeing 242A on the map.
Oh, sorry,
Maybe I'm-
sorry, my mistake, 252A. Yeah,
Okay.
252A, my apologies.
I see.
Sorry, I think you just mean 252?
Yeah, 252A is the one that has posted they posted two separate letters.
I don't think it's on the plan. It looks like there's two properties at 252, and then it looks like there is a second that doesn't have a number. I presume that's A.
Sorry, and one other question on the map, where you have the subject property. Thank you. Is the deck on the south side of that? Or
Yeah, so the deck is on the south side, and it's on the east side of the property.
Thank you.
So if you went back to slide number 3, that was the slide that showed where the deck was located. The blue line around the perimeter of the deck. If you...
Any other questions? Ms. Barton?
I have a quick question. Is there a possibility, or have you already put, how high is the railing on the side that would affect 252A?
So the deck railing height is 42 inches, and that's required by building code because of the height above grade.
Right.
So it's consistent around the perimeter of the deck.
Okay, thank you.
So just by the looks of it, it's to the side of the actual proposed deck, that 252A to the east side is impacted.
So it's on the opposite side of where the
not
opposition is.
directly, like,
Correct,
it's
right.
to
It's on
the
the other
side.
side of the house.
Would you ever be opposed to privacy screening that could be erected on that side? Of
Well,
the standard length?
in the meeting that my client had with the owners, there was a discussion where my client offered to plant trees and to build a privacy screen. But the takeaway from the meeting was that the opposition wouldn't be happy unless the deck was not built at all.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to hear from our other speakers now. Let's see who we've got. We have a Miss Levy. Oh, thank you, Miss Levy. Okay, and do we have a Miss Merchant?
My name is Nabinita Merchant. I reside at 252A Broadway Avenue. I have copies, by the way, of maps that show exactly where those houses that
I
you-
was about to ask you. Yeah, perhaps you could tell us where you live on the map.
Sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Chair,
sorry, hold
she's
on.
not allowed to distribute any material to the members, please.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. Mr. Chair, she has to step back to the microphone. Because we're virtual, there are people who are listening by telephone and cannot see. The applicant needs to return to the microphone and cannot
All right,
submit
sorry.
any material.
Okay, so
Well, we can pull up a map, and even if it's not labeled, I'll ask you to point out where
Okay.
your address is.
Okay.
I am going to just remove this.
all right, sure.
Just for procedural, if you don't mind.
No worries. I'll refer to it in any case
Yeah.
by schedule name because we had submitted those as schedules.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, and I mean we've got a good amount of material. I think we can staff can help us, and we can pull some images up and ask questions as well.
Sure, thank you.
So we'll get the clock up. We did get your name and address.
Yes.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you.
To speak.
Thank you. So the home is at 252A. My home is at 252A Broadway Avenue, and is greatly impacted by this application as a result of its proximity and location relative to the applicant's home. I think one of your members inquired, and so the relationship is really almost like an L-shaped relationship, where that house is perpendicular to ours. And so the balcony would protrude to the extent that it would have a direct line of sight, not only into our backyard, but also into our living dining space. If the impact on us was not significant, we would not be present here today. We wouldn't be wasting your time or ours. I would like to reiterate my case for the rejection of the application to build this cantilevered balcony at 248C Broadway Avenue. Here are my reasons. It will be a large balcony extending out 8 feet from their rear wall. And as I said, it would extend to the point where they would have access not only into our backyard, but also into our living dining space. It would also be at a much higher level than our fencing. I think that the lady just before me mentioned that we all have decks, 3 of us, 252A, 252, and 250, but ours are at a much lower level, whereas theirs would be at a higher level and they would have direct access certainly into our balcony and into our backyard. So this is evident from the photograph, which I was attempting to give you, but which I had provided you earlier, and it's labeled as Schedule 3. Such a balcony would cause a major invasion of our privacy, impair our enjoyment of our backyard and home. Also, a balcony at that height on the second floor will result in more noise, as there's nothing to absorb or block sound at that level. At that height, even simple conversations will carry over. The balcony will represent a major eyesore for us all year, as it will be visible even from our living dining area. For all of these reasons, our realtor tells us that such a balcony would result in a substantial decline in the value of our home. This was a point when we met with the homeowners of that property. We pointed out to them all of these issues. We have lived in this home for 27 years and count on the equity in it. To have it taken away is unacceptable to us. The requested change is not a minor variance. As far as we can see, it's a major variance and represents a substantial violation of the regulations. It would set a precedent for future such violations. If everyone whose backyard is impacted by this were to start building such second-floor balconies, imagine what that would do to everyone's enjoyment of their backyard space. We'd all be on top of each other. Last but certainly not least, my husband is very distraught about this matter, and I'm most concerned about his mental health. After working for so many years for Canadian companies, we want our retirement to be peaceful. You must have reviewed the letters of objection from 8 households neighboring 248C Broadway Avenue. We have indicated those homes in a map labeled as Schedule 2 in an earlier submission to you. We have copies of the map and letters here for you, if you wish. Unfortunately, we weren't able to circulate it. As you're aware, many letters of support were subsequently retracted and objections filed. We understand that folks had casually signed a petition of support presented to them and then objected to the application when they realized the scope and negative impact of the project on themselves and/or their neighbors. Of the remaining letters of support, which you can see on the Schedule 1 we had submitted earlier, most are not impacted by the project at all, as their homes, as in the case of 242, 246, and 248B, Broadway Avenue, are either to the north of 248C, as was the case with these 3 homes, and their backyards face north, so they don't even see the applicant's backyard at all, or they live too far east on Broadway Avenue, for example, 272 and 276 Broadway Avenue, to be impacted at all. So the letters of support should carry no weight whatsoever. In summary, this proposed application violates the regulations significantly, has no valid support, and plenty of objection. Therefore, there's no justification at all for such a balcony. The applicants already have a very nice backyard to enjoy the outdoors in their home. We hope that you, as respected members of this committee, will honor the wishes of the affected neighbors and decline this balcony application.
Okay.
I would like to. if I-
Final words, if you don't mind. We're just
Yes,
over our 5.
a couple of points that were raised by the lady ahead of me. She said the deck was similar in size. Our deck is actually 92 inches. We measured it together. Theirs is going to be 8 feet, which is 96 inches. So ours is 4 inches less. And as I said, all our decks are at a lower level. No privacy screening was suggested to us. What was suggested to us, we were told that they would be putting planters in their deck. And to us, that really is not acceptable because for a number of reasons, which is we don't know the extent of the foliage, whether it'll provide adequate privacy. If they're standing on the balcony, it won't. Sound will likely carry. What if some plants die, aren't replaced? What if the property is sold? Future owners decide not to have plants. This sounds like a temporary fix, no assurance or control for the future.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask if we have any questions before you step down. We do. Mr.
Through you, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I know that you mentioned about the pictures that you wanted to circulate. I understand that. Correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned that you submitted those pictures. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, just out of the fairness, is it okay if we ask the staff to have that? Because you mentioned, you brought it up in terms of that.
Yes.
So I want you to, so is there any specific thing that shows in this picture that you would like to draw our attention to?
Yes.
Or it was just the formality of submission?
No, I wanted to draw your attention because some of you were asking the location of some of the houses that had submitted letters of support. And I wanted to show on these maps that those houses that have provided letters of support.
Is that the map right now?
Yes.
Is that the one you were
that is one
referring
of that is one of the ones, yes. And you can see that the ones at the top that have circles next to them, those 3 houses are to the north of this house. Their backyard is on the other side. And so they have absolutely no way to look into the backyard of this house. Similarly, the 2 lower down, immediately to the right, I think it's 272 and 274 from what I can see, they are way too far to be in any way impacted. So those letters of support should be completely discredited.
Okay. Well,
there was another map I had provided you, which was called Schedule 2, and that had shown where all the letters of objection are, exactly. And you can see that the letters of objection are pretty much from houses that are very close to 248C and where 248C would be looking down upon them.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to see those maps, and I'm good with this now.
And the third map, actually, if you'd allow me to speak to that, the thing, yes, here. You can see at the top, further, if you can put this down, yes. If you look at the first image, our house is there at the back, and already without a balcony, they can look right into our patio door and into our deck, into our balcony, into our deck there. You can imagine if there's a big balcony projecting all the way out, the extent to which they will be able to look entirely into our backyard and even into our home.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fazeli, anything else? Okay, and thank you for bringing bringing our attention to that. It's always helpful. We do have another question from another one of my colleagues. Ms. Sankar Peralta?
Yeah, so just one quick question. Can you confirm for me that this would be the only unit in that entire area that's going to be proposing a second floor balcony, that there is no others that's on the second floor? From what I'm hearing, you're all on the first floor.
Yes, we're all on a lower level. This house is built, I think, I'm not an architect, but on a higher level, such that where this balcony is going to be at a higher level than where our backyards and our living spaces are. That door that I showed you is where our living, dining, kitchen area is. This balcony is proposed to be outside of their living, dining, kitchen area. And so clearly they'll be using it, I would imagine, quite frequently.
I have one question for you. It seems that the concerns are stemming from exclusively privacy, right? The matters of privacy. So
privacy, noise, those are two major considerations. There's also the precedence concern that if others start to build that, that'll become that much worse.
Okay. Just taking that into consideration, my question for you is, you know, it doesn't seem like there was, you said that there wasn't a discussion concerning screening, whether it be planting or it be something that's fixed. But I just wanted to put that out there. If privacy is the main concern, is that something that could be mitigated through some screening?
Well, as I said to you, the plants around the balcony certainly wouldn't do it. And I don't know, it would be up for discussion what the mitigation strategy might be. Even if, to be fair, they had suggested that perhaps they could plant a whole bunch of evergreens on that west side. It would have to be at a substantial height, I don't know, 15, 20 feet, whatever it is. It would have to be from the get-go, and I'm not sure if that's possible. But even if that were to be so, you ask yourself, what if the house is sold and the next people say, we don't like that, we want to put something else? What if a tree were to die? What if it were to collapse onto our fence? And the third point I mentioned, which is very critical, is one of the value of our property. We immediately brought in, we were actually surprised when we received this. Anyway,
unfortunately, we don't deal with property value. It's just something that's not included in a part of the forecast.
All right.
Yeah, but I can tell you, as a member of the Toronto Real Estate Board for over 10 years, I'll be honest, I'm not, what your realtor told you, I'm not buying the property value argument.
All right.
But perhaps maybe that, you know, perhaps can assuage some concerns with respect to property value. I mean, certainly considering the distance from you, from the actual building on your property. Are there any other questions at this time? No? Okay. I'm going to thank you very much. I'd like to, I believe we have one more speaker. Yes. In person. Yeah, please come down to the podium and state your name and address for us.
My name's Sally Manning, and I'm at 264 Broadway. So I believe that I'm one of the most impacted by this. It's kind of an unusual structure. I don't know if you can make heads or tails, but basically the backyards of two houses next to me were cut short, and this house was put in. And so it's a very large, unusual shaped house. Most people think it's two houses, but it's one large house. And my backyard goes directly, the balcony would be directly beside my backyard, right directly on the second floor, looking down. I think when the house was built, it was meant to be a 2-story house, but it ends up being 3 stories. But I think there aren't any balconies that are on the second floor in that area. I think that I understand people wanting to have a little place for a cup of coffee or something, but this is like a 100-square-foot balcony that is going to be right directly above the area where I have my barbecue in my backyard and so forth. It's going to be right above where I am. So I feel that that's not wanted.
Can I ask, with respect to the topography, you're south of the subject site. I presume that what's considered your ground level, does that have access directly to the backyard?
My ground level
or is it a walkout?
No, it's a basement. My first floor is walkout. My basement down under the earth, and then first floor.
Okay, so there is no direct access from the basement. It's
on my house?
Of your house, yeah.
No.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a little bit sense of the built form in the in the immediate context here.
Right.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
One question, Mr. Chair. Through you. Do you know how far it is from your back of your house to the property line? Like the approximate depth?
Well, the lot is about, I don't know. The lot is about 120 feet deep, so the end of my house would be over halfway of that. but the garden and the area where I sit is right there, is right beside where this balcony will come out.
In the rear yard. I see.
My
Thank you.
balcony, my garden ends with a brick wall, as you can see. There's a brick wall.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any other speakers? Anyone online? No. Okay. Sure.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. It looks, on Google Maps, there looks to be a number of deciduous trees or coniferous that are in front of the area where the balcony is going to go. Can you comment what type of trees those are and whether they'll actually block a lot of, the visual of the balcony?
Ms.
The
Martin,
last speaker, sorry.
The last speaker.
Who's the question addressed to?
The last speaker. Ms. Merchant?
No, I'm Ms. Merchant. This is Ms.
Manning. Ms. Manning, I believe the question was addressed to you. If you can come down to the podium for us, just so we want to make sure that those that are online can hear everybody. And
You were asking about the trees that are along there?
Yeah, looking on Google Maps, it looks like there's a number of trees blocking that are between your house and where the balcony's going to be. So
No,
I'm just
there-
wondering, like, are they too high and you're going to have a straight view of this balcony?
There's one
or-
tree, okay, sorry.
Sorry?
There's the one tree that's closest to their house on my lot is a Japanese maple, which has some branches that go way over onto theirs, onto their lot, and would probably have to be cut back to put the balcony in. And the tree is also failing. The second tree is a mountain ash, which is already dead. The top third of it is dead, and it will not be able to be continued to be there. So whatever temporary, it feels like there's a little temporary barricade, but it's really not. And when those go down, it's going to be even more evident. And of course, in the winter and other seasons, it would be more evident and easily viewable from the house.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing that there's no other questions, I will ask the agent to come back. Take your time. And I'll provide you an opportunity to respond only to those concerns that were brought up by the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to bring up that if you look at the survey, the building is only a two-story house. It's because the basement opens at grade that we're talking about 3 stories. But if you look at the official survey on the drawing set that was submitted on A101, it is a 2-story house. The trees that you are referring to are very, very large evergreen trees, and there's 2 of them, and they line up together. And they have a huge trunk. So even though they're quite a distance from our backyard, we still have to do a little bit of a tree protection because of the canopy of the tree. Our balcony is a cantilevered balcony, so we're not going to have any supports going down into the ground. And the reason for that is because the building was built in the 1980s, and there are very deep floor plates. And we realized that we had this opportunity to cantilever structurally, so we don't have to have, big posts going down into the ground. If we go back to slide number 4, I believe it was, where we show photographs into the rear yards. If you look at the photo number 1, it's kind of hard to see, but my client planted 4 broadhorn trees. And right now, you can just see the more stick figures. She planted them last summer, and they cost $400 each. And the intent was that they would grow up and provide some greenery and some privacy. And this is a very treed area. You pointed that out yourself when you looked at the Google map. Like, there's a lot of trees. And this was why, the client was like, well, this is just a huge opportunity to be able to kind of sit outside and enjoy this kind of experience of all this greenery. And they are aging. So it is one of these things where everybody else in this neighborhood, or everybody on Broadway and Broadway Gardens, they all have a deck that they're able to access, and they have to go downstairs to get to that deck. We're basically going to be 5.5 feet higher than what their decks are. And we want the same thing. We want to be able to, you know, go directly out into this balcony without having to go down and through the house and into the backyard. So that was what our request was.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Ms. Casson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, applicant, we have a question for you. Another question. What is the approximate distance from the edge of the balcony to the back of the 252, I believe? 252?
Oh, so if we're...
252A.
Okay, I will look at my drawing set to answer that question. So I'm going to say, based on, so the edge closest to the fence, and I'm doing this just, you know, proportioning it off, it looks like it would be approximately 28 feet to the fence. And then, of course, you know, there's distance between their fence to the back of their deck.
And do you have an idea of how deep their backyard is?
I don't have that information.
Okay, thank you.
It does not show on the survey.
Considerable setback. Yeah. On all sides. Both, just setbacks in your. Should we pull up the map? Do we need any clarification? Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing as that there's no other questions, it looks like we're prepared to move into committee. I cannot entertain other questions from those that are opposed at this time, but you can address after the hearing. You can address questions towards our staff. Okay. All right. So let's move this into committee now. Looks like somebody beat you to it. Miss Sankar-Perel, Doug.
Okay. Thank you for everyone who, participated. Sometimes when you think it's something really small, it turns out to be extremely meaningful, and there was quite a bit of dialogue. So it was necessary. I mean, when I look at this, I had thought, hey, this is nothing too extravagant. But upon hearing the fact that it is, where it's going to be located, the numbers of folks within the proximity that will be impacted, the resistance to privacy screens, and the inability perhaps of other mechanisms like planting trees, etc., that would have to be very tall and very mature to go in there to replace the ones that are dying. It's quite a lot, and there are some good points that had been made that if you do depart the area, anyone coming in new can do whatever they need to. And, the fact is that everyone else within the vicinity and the character of that area have everything that looks like it's on a base level to the ground itself. And while I really empathize and understand the need for open air and open space, there has to be a consideration of how this impacts heavily on, the neighbors, and whether this meets you know, the full 4 tests, which I don't think it does. No matter if on paper it looks minor, I don't think that it is in terms of the impact and the character. And so for that reason, I have to put forward a motion to refuse this application.
Okay, do I have a seconder? No seconder. Okay, those opposed to the motion? There's no seconder, so we don't need to. All right. Well, it looks like the motion doesn't carry, so we put that back to, go back to committee now. Mr. Fazeli, you have some?
No, I'm just thinking like if any other members have some comments that anyone?
I mean, I can weigh in. I think, you know, I think this really is a matter of privacy, right? I think that given the scale of it, given the setback to the, within the immediate context to the adjacent properties, there's a considerable setback. And I think it's important to make a distinction between, you know, privacy that, you know, while everybody has individual backyards on this space, collectively, right, they create a kind of a larger kind of open space, a forested space, right? And I think it's just important to distinguish between, you know, privacy concerns that are substantial and those that are, you know, are deemed acceptable. I don't think it's fair to put the onus on any resident within that context to say, well, there shouldn't be any, you know, sight lines at all. I think most of us that live in Toronto, certainly within denser neighborhoods, you know, there are sight lines, right? And I think it's important just for us to be able to distinguish whether or not those privacy issues are indeed meet the threshold of what would be considered materially impactful on those adjacent properties. In this case, I don't see that impact as being material to the neighbors. I think there's considerable setback. And I do recognize the condition that this is a property that just by nature has a basement that walks out and therefore is considered a second-story platform. So I think it's a fair application in that respect, and I do think that you know, in terms of the 4 tests, I do think this is something that is supportable. Oh, I won't bring well, unless, would you like to? Okay.
Through Mr. Chair, I do agree with you. However, I also think that privacy screening should be provided by the applicant because of the concerns raised by the neighbors. So I'm sensitive to that, but I would agree with you that I think there's sufficient setback from the various property lines and other houses surrounding that property to provide a reasonable setback. And I don't think the impact is onerous on any of the adjacent neighbors. So with that, I will move a motion to approve, subject to privacy screening being provided on the, I believe it's the south and west sides. Does that make sense? South and west, I think to the east is the apartment building, so I don't think that's of a concern. So south and west sides to a height of 1.5 meters. Okay.
But I think on the south side, I don't think it really.
Okay. So
It's really fair to the applicant.
Staff, I'll amend my motion to approve, subject to privacy screening on the east side of the balcony to a height of 1.5 meters.
1 second, just the condition of the, like, the drawings, I guess, in tie with the side plan, yes.
Sorry, I think we lost sight of that in all the discussion. I think it's a planning staff report recommending that it be tied to the site plan attached to the report and the rear south elevation. Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, did we get all that?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that amendment.
Substantially in accordance. Right. Correct.
Substantially in accordance with, as to provide the applicant the opportunity to.
Did we wish to say the actual amount, like how many? 1.5, right. Thank you.
Sorry, not the east side, the west side. Thank you. I think I said west originally, and then, yes. Thank you
But
for the clarification.
But the east side is what impacts the Marchands, no? It's the west side?
Okay. I'm moving a motion to approve this application, subject to it being tied to the site, substantially in accordance with the site plan and the south elevation, and subject to a condition of privacy screening panel on the west side of the proposed platform to a height of 1.5 meters.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a On file, I have material from the applicant, a staff report from community planning, as well as a memo from transportation. We've got the agent
Thank
with
you.
us. Good
Thank you,
morning.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my name's Stephen Armstrong. I'm the agent for the applicant. I do have a presentation. Briefly, I can show the committee. I'm also with the owner who's in the audience with me today. I will be asking committee to approve the 4 variances before you. I know there's a deferral request, but I think you'll find, I don't believe it'd be beneficial for the committee to defer this item based on the comments, and I'll go through those in my submission. If I can just go to the presentation, there's the existing bungalow, typical of a wartime home in Leaside. Next slide, please.
Sorry to interrupt. You gave us your address?
Oh,
Just
I'm
for the
sorry.
record.
1600 Steeles Avenue West.
Thank you.
Toronto. I apologize for that.
No, of course. Go on.
Next slide. Oh, sorry. So before you is an application for 4 variances to build a detached home. The official plan designates it as a neighborhood, and there's an R zoning there. Next slide. Next slide. It just shows the committee, the official plan. There's the site plan or the survey of the new home. It's just to give the committee an orientation. The house to the south of it fronts onto the other road, and then their neighbors to the north are the sidewalls. Next slide. So I just want to focus quickly on the variances. So you'll see there's no height variance, no rear, no front yard variance. My client has showed these plans to their neighbors, and unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe there's any letters of objection before the committee. The one deferral, the first one on the required parking space, it's just for the inside of the garage of the parking space. And I have some photos to show that this is very similar to two other variances on this street and is common. It's nothing to do with the driveway. There's reference to the curb cut, and I can say for the committee, who I'm sure is much more experienced than I am, the curb cut is typically done through the building permit stage through public works. So the second comment from transportation is dealt with through the permit stage, and we don't see any issue with that. In fact, if the committee wanted to make it a condition, which I don't think is necessary, I'm not opposed to it. But in terms of the garage width, that is a variance we're proposing, and I know they mentioned that in their comments. The side yards, if I can go to there's a slide that shows there's one pinch point that's the 0.6. Oh, sorry about this. So there's two examples of the garages on the street in green, and the subject property is just on the top. Next slide. This is the floor space index. You can see typically what we're proposing is in line with what's proposed in the neighborhood. It's just 0.03 above what's permitted, but fairly minor, or minor in my view. Next slide. So these show the pinch points on the side yard. So in some cases, it's an improvement of the existing side yard. I know planning staff made that comment. And then you can see the 0.61 for the side yards. Next slide. This just gives you a picture of the side yards, the existing new dwelling to the north, and then the other side yard to the project, or to the existing home to the south. Again, both these homeowners on either side were consulted. We showed them the plans. I can, at the time, and I believe since they're not here, they had no objections. They were happy with the proposal and looking forward to the site being reconstructed. Next slide. These are just the eaves. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the eaves. I know I'm probably running out of time. I can't see the timer, but I know it's probably running out. So typical variance for lease side. The architect we've hired has done many, again, minor in nature. Happy to go over it if there's any questions. And next slide. So in terms of the proposal, it's my view that this application does meet the 4 tests. It meets the intent of the official plan, which is designated neighborhood that allows the use. The proposed intent of the bylaw, in my view, meets the intent in terms of the scale of the building, in terms of having no height variance front and rear. The side yards and the floor space index is minor. The garage variance, again, I think is very minor. It's 6 inches, but it does impact the home. And again, it's a common variance for lease side. I'm sure the committee sees this is what you do. And the eaves trough, again, is a fairly common variance as a result of the design, and in my opinion is minor. So in summary, it's my planning opinion and my recommendation that the applications are minor, and I'd ask the committee, subject to any questions, to approve it. There's a condition listed in planning in the staff report that I'm fine with. Makes reference to a setback, and I believe that was in the recommendation section of their comments. So with that said, thanks very much. I appreciate it. And it's actually nice to be back in person at a Committee of Adjustment hearing again versus virtually.
Thank you. Well, it's always nice when people show up in person as well.
Yeah, I was really sorry. I don't want to, because I know you're busy. I was happy we can come back in person. I find it a little more beneficial and easier if there's questions, as you can imagine, right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That said, I should ask, do we have any questions at this time? Okay. And I have just a follow-up question regarding the width, the variance for the parking width. That relates specifically to the garage. And am I correct to assume that the desire for the variance is essentially to limit the size of the garage on the interior of the house? Is it to provide more living space?
Yes, yes. So So it's just the garage, inside the garage, so the driveway and everything's okay. So it is relatable to the living space in the garage. So the architect, through his design, is, in theory, if you were to push it over another 6 inches, impacts, sort of ripples up the first floor of the home. So in dealing with the architect, and I'll be frank, I did ask him about it, and if the variance wasn't granted, it has a pretty substantial ripple effect, and in my view, it is minor, and that's why I wanted to show you 2 other examples, recent examples in the neighborhood of similar variances sought. So it must be a common issue that's coming up lately in the house designs.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing as we have no more speakers and no questions, I'd like to take this into committee.
Mr. Chair, if there are no comments, I'm willing to make a motion.
Yes, Ms. Casson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application. I think that it's, the requests are fairly minor. I think that it's within the intent of the OP zoning, and it's desirable for the area. It's a narrow lot. I think the reduced parking size is appropriate as well. So I would make a motion to approve, subject to the recommendation of planning, that the minimum north side yard setback be developed in accordance with the site plan drawing attached to the planning staff report. And I have no other conditions at this point. I don't think the transportation comment is significant regarding the curb cut, so I don't think that needs to be noted.
Do I have a seconder? Okay, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. The motion is approved. The application is approved. Thank you. Okay. Item number 9. (135) Cameron Avenue. The purpose of the application is to legalize and maintain a rear deck with variance for rear deck projection and rear deck setback. On file, I have material from the applicant, as well as a letter from 139 Cameron Avenue, as well as a letter of support from 133 Cameron Avenue, and 2 letters of concern from 2 unknown individuals. I also, we have a planning staff report as well. Late one, yes. Can I ask staff, can we pull up that late staff report? Yes, and I do recall reading it this morning. Thank you. And we've got the agent or applicant with us.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm the applicant, Zeming Zhu, and I'm currently at 2710 14th Avenue, Markham, Ontario.
Okay, thank you. You are aware of the staff report that came in?
I have not seen this staff report.
Okay. And I believe I see that the owner is registered, but I don't, you do have access to the owner? So I'd like to. Oh, the owner is here.
I believe the owner is in the audience.
So I'd like, I don't mean to kind of, because it is a late report, and I do want to provide an opportunity for you to perhaps discuss it, so. So, I mean, unless you, I want to give you an opportunity to speak with the client. I think it's appropriate, given that you haven't seen the late staff report, to table the item, and we'll come back to it very shortly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I'll put out there as well, there is an option to request deferral as well, but I don't want to put you on the spot, and I want to provide you an opportunity to speak with your client.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so let's table that. I'd like to jump over to item number 10. 14 Green Valley Road. The purpose of this application is to construct a new dwelling. We have variances for building height, building length, lot coverage, rear balcony area, rear canopy projection, as well as a number of balconies permitted at the rear of a building. On file, I have material from the applicant, 2 memorandums from Urban Forestry, a letter from the TRCA recommending deferral, as well as a letter of opposition from 12, 16, and 20 Green Valley Road, as well as the York Mills Valley Association and 28 York Valley Crescent. I also have letters of opposition from 6 St. Margaret's Drive and 103 Donwoods Drive. Do we have the agent with us?
Yes, you do. Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rose.
So if staff can put up my presentation, merged presentation, that'd be very helpful. So I'll start out by saying planning supports this application. You have an email saying they didn't comment, and it's because they support the application. Of course, they review all the decisions in the area, as have I, and this is well within the reasonable range for test of the Planning Act. So on this one, maybe staff can make it a little bit bigger. A little hard to see. You are going to hear that the house is so deep because we have a variance for length. This is a unique site in that the bylaw here is still based on the old bylaw. So when people say that this house is too long, perhaps it's because it goes to the front. The green lines are the existing house. The red line is the proposed house. Our house is narrower and shallower going into the backyard than the existing house. I will also point out that TRCA, Forestry, and Ravine have conditions on approval, but they have no objections, and we are absolutely okay with the conditions that they would put on us. You will hear about people talking about trees and saving trees. We have no problem complying with the conditions of forestry. The other thing you'll see in some of the letters is they're objecting to a height of 11.47 meters or whatever. They're talking about a new bylaw. This is under the old bylaw. We are asking for 9.77 meters, well within the range of other houses in the area. So that's the first variance, which is measured to the midpoint eve to ridge. Building length, again, we are shorter than the existing building. Lot coverage, 33.6. So on these images, you can see number 14 is our property. The existing house is very long, and we are not as deep in relation to the next door neighbors' houses. The next slide is 16 and 14. They're the ones that are complaining about the length and ruining the view of their backyard. They're going to actually have more view of their backyard. So coverage, we are within range of other approvals in the area at 33.6. This is a small overage. Maximum permitted balcony areas. There are 2 balconies in the rear. This is a beautiful rear lot. It's kind of ravine setting. Listen, if there's a concern about privacy, we have no problem with putting privacy screens, should the neighbors want that on either side of the balconies. They're not large. Projection of a canopy into the rear yard. This is a open trellis area. So it is open to the sky. It is large, but again, not a big obstruction. It's sort of lower. The rear of our first floor is actually below grade. If you look at the side elevation, which we don't have on this presentation, we're actually digging into the ground. So that also reflects height. Height is measured from the center line of the road, not average grade. So when you come out the rear door of the first floor, you're actually below grade. So that trellis area is not that high compared to the neighbors' houses. And then there's a variance that we have 2 balconies on the rear. Again, this is a multi-generational home. So there's sort of 2 master bedrooms, I guess, and they both want small balconies. That's my presentation for now, and I can respond to any questions or comments if there's a speaker. I believe there might be some speakers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have one question, a clarification. You said that you mentioned the trellis on the back of the house. Is that just the center portion? Because the balconies are covered. That's a covered porch in those areas. Is that correct? Like underneath the balcony?
You can go to the ground floor plan perhaps, or keep going down.
Oh, I see.
That's the basement. So there, you see the trellis area? The bay windows are really included in length. So the length really isn't the 19 meters. There's the trellis area in the middle.
I actually think it shows up better on the second floor plan.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's true.
It's clearer.
Yeah, so there's the trellis area. That
Thank
counts
you.
It counts for that projection of almost 6 meters.
It's pergola.
It is a variance, but I don't think there's much impact.
So the pergola area is included in the variance. There's a variance for that. That's
Yes.
part of that canopy. Okay,
That's what
thank
they're
you.
calling the covered.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Looks like we have one other speaker. We've got a neighbor. Welcome. You could just state your names and address for us.
Hi, I'm Christopher Young, and this is my wife Jennifer. We're at 16 Green Valley Road.
Welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon. Thank you for your time. We've lived in our home for 14 years and with our 2 children. We did submit a letter to the committee. We'll take that as having been read and consumed, so we don't need to put up a presentation. This proposed plan will have a major adverse effect on us and our ability to enjoy our property inside and out. The bill will put our home in persistent, significant shade and decrease our privacy. It will reduce green space, and it will destroy the appropriate spatial relationship between our houses and the street, and is not in keeping with the unique character of the valley, so we respectfully request that you deny this application. First, we object to the excessive height and length of the proposed building. From ground level, it is 11.5 meters tall and will extend in length over 19 meters long. This means that we'll have a building that will extend both in front and behind our home, which is only 8.4 meters long, excluding the front of our 1-story garage, leaving us without direct light for more than half the day. This would affect our whole home, and importantly, the rooms where we spend most of our time, the family room and the kitchen. These are single-story spaces directly behind the garage and have clear-story windows, which are currently unobstructed. We installed this with the explicit intent of bringing natural light into our home. Should this plan go ahead, our view will change from natural light and trees to a solid wall and shade. This would meaningfully impact our quality of life. Further, the excessive height and length would change the primary entrance of our home from one that is open, bright, and visible to the street to one that is more or less an alleyway with an 11.5 meter tall wall on the west side. This is the entrance that our family, including our children, use all the time, and with increased personal and property crime, we worry that our safety could be compromised. Second, we object to the proposed lot coverage. This is obviously related to and a consequence of the proposed length. Lots in the valley are large, and homes along this section of Green Valley on this side of the road are set back in a way that allows for green space openness and, most importantly, effective flood mitigation. The applicant may cite the alignment of our single-story garage, which is a small extension in front of our house, but it's misleading to consider without looking at the whole street, including to the west. All homes on Green Valley are set back in a staggered way that allows for green space and transmission of sunlight to all properties. We feel obligated to mention the flood risk, especially in our sensitive valley location. I've even spent time personally with the owners of number 14, helping them direct rainwater away from their home to the natural swale lines on and around our properties. Should this excessively sized building proceed, there's potential to increase risk of flooding on our property. Lastly, we object to the proposed rear balconies. If they're built, we will suffer from a loss of privacy in our own yard. Currently, there's a double row of healthy cedar hedges, one of which we planted. The hedge is around 3 or 4 meters tall and provides privacy. A second-floor rear balcony would overlook this hedge and result in severe loss of privacy and impact our ability to enjoy our own yard. The balcony would also permit direct views into our rear windows and our private family spaces. While tree loss is not the jurisdiction of this committee, it is pertinent to our position because the loss and/or injury of 21 trees is a direct result of the proposed length and lot coverage variances. Urban tree canopy is a common good and a uniquely valuable part of the Valley neighborhood. To be specific, we contributed to the canopy by planting and maintaining 3 mature tulip trees. We bought them, we planted them, and we have taken care of them. They are between our homes. They were planted with the agreement of the owners of number 14 and on the direction of urban forestry when we did a minor renovation which had no variances. They provide many benefits, including improving drainage in the swale line between our homes. Removing them will adversely affect the natural effective drainage between our houses. We're here today because the proposed build would have the most impact on us as immediate neighbors. There are many objections which you heard from other neighbors and neighborhood associations. While we can't speak for them, we believe this committee should take the breadth of their opposition and objections into consideration. We would also like to point out that the applicants have not engaged in any dialogue with us about this proposal. They have not considered the impact on us nor on our neighborhood. One of the primary reasons the committee is permitted to deny an application is because of the adverse effect on neighbors and the neighborhood. That is the case here. Should this build proceed, our ability to enjoy our property will be permanently adversely impacted in a major way. Our home will be in shade, we will lose privacy, there will be increased flood risk, fewer trees, and less green space. It will destroy the appropriate relationship between our houses and the street and disrupt the neighborhood character. This is not necessary. There are many large, beautiful homes in our neighborhood that have been built with no variances. We're not opposed to reasonable development. We undertook a renovation with no variances and planted all the trees required, including 10 cedars and 3 tulip trees that are at risk. Bylaws, urban forestry, and ravine protection are in place for a reason. So please help our family avoid these major adverse effects and on our quality of life. We respectfully request that you deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Is that Ms. Martin? Do you have a question for the applicant or for the applicant? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back to the applicant to respond now, and we will follow that up with questions if we have at that time. Okay. Can we get Mr. Rose back?
I am here. Thank you very much. If staff can put my presentation back up, please. I guess I should only be that's a good one to start with. Wait, go back there. I guess I should only respond to the variance issues because overlook and shade and privacy and flooding and trees are not under the jurisdiction of Committee of Adjustment. I have said that we'll comply with any conditions of forestry, ravine, and TRCA. This red line that I've drawn shows the setbacks of the houses on Green Valley. There was a comment that we don't respect the setbacks. I'll argue that this is exactly what we're doing because we're moving the house forward to that point. The opposition spoke about a 11.5 meter wall. I don't know what he's talking about. There's no variance for height of walls. We have a 9.77 meter variance for height of roof. There are comments being made that are not pertaining to the variances. We have staff support. We don't have any objection from the councillor. So people are talking about issues that they don't want this house built, but we're here to talk about the variances. And I believe this clearly meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I can answer any other questions. And furthermore, the house is coming further away from it's coming closer to the street than the existing house in the rear yard.
Yeah, Mr. Rose, there's a quick question. There's some talk with respect to setbacks, a front yard setback, but there is no front yard setback variance being requested, right?
Correct. We are complying with the front yard setback.
Right. So which variance is this diagram on the screen in support of?
The front yard setback. There isn't. So the comment was made that I'm not respecting the development in the area.
Fair enough.
The development area, the front setback is the required front setback. So I'm moving the house forward. in line with his house and the other houses. The only house that is out of line is 14, our house, and 12. But we're in line with the ones going in this picture to the right. That's how development works. That's how planning wants development on the street. They want a consistent street line. In fact, the new bylaw, that's how the new bylaw is based. It's based on the average of the two adjacent neighbors. Now, that's not in play here, but when there's an anomaly like number 12 or 14, planning would actually want to be more consistent. And that's why they haven't objected to anything, nor is there a variance for front yard setback. So I think the point is moot.
I think that was part of the confusion. I sort of veering off into a front yard setback discussion when it complies.
Yeah, I was just addressing a comment made by the neighbor.
Fair enough. Okay, it looks like we have some more questions.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, can you provide some detail on why you need the height variance? And could you also, while answering that, tell us what the first floor height is?
Sure. Can staff put up the elevations? So I want to start 10165. I'm just gonna look at something else here. So height is measured to the center line of the road, not established grade, and from the midpoint eave to ridge. This is how the old bylaw was written. I will point out that our first floor is virtually where the existing first floor is. And if you look at my side elevation, staff can pull that, go down a few. One more. You'll see my rear yard, the first floor is underground. I've tried to push this house into the ground more. So it's related to how the bylaw is written here. I will point out I have several variances in the area. Number 26 has a height of 10.67. On York Valley, 10.3. There's one at 10 meters and there's one at 9.46. So this is well within keeping of variances that have been approved in the area. So it's not measured to the peak, it's measured midpoint eave to ridge. And we're less than a meter, we're about less than a meter over what's allowed in. And these variances have been approved time and time again in the area. And that's why planning hasn't objected. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, except the first floor. What's the height of the first floor in terms of ceiling height? Like,
in terms of, sorry, in terms of?
In terms of ceiling height, like how high is the first floor? Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can staff just zoom in there. So it's an 11-foot first floor ceiling height. Sorry, I understood I didn't understand what you're asking originally. So it says 12.3, that's floor to floor. We usually leave about 1'3" for structure. So it's 11-foot first floor.
But, yeah. Okay, and other questions? Of course, Ms. Martin.
So I'm just looking at this proposed site plan right now, and can you bring that up and show us where the pergola and the over the second floor balconies are located on this plan? Because I can't really make it out.
Staff can bring up the site plan,
I
sure.
want to see where it is in relation to the houses on either side, the existing houses. Yeah.
That's not the site plan. Keep going back.
There.
There you go.
That's it.
So, I apologize. It might be easier if staff can show my presentation that had the green. Go to the very first page. So you can see the two balconies are the red bump outs at the rear. I don't know if staff can show. You can see the house is sort of, that's one, and then the other one's exactly mirrored on the other side.
Okay. And
Then you have the pergolas in the middle. You can see the two columns. Right? Perfect. And then you can, and the green line is the existing house.
Okay, thank you very much. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay. Seeing as that there's no other questions, let's move into committee. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Are any of you worried about the balconies to the rear and how it impacts on the neighbor?
Yeah, if you could just speak into your mic, just so
Sorry,
that.
Sorry, I just wondered if we could just sort of discuss at least the rear balconies to the rear, and that's variance number 4, and to see how that impacts upon the neighbors who spoke.
I am concerned about the balcony. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I am concerned about the balcony, but I think that it's not a large balcony, and it could be mitigated by a privacy panel on the, what are we doing now? East and west, if we wanted to. East of the east balcony, I believe.
Yeah.
And the west of the west balcony.
They come across as more decorative features, architectural features to me. And given the fact that each balcony is limited in its area and directly access off of a bedroom, I mean, I'd be surprised if you'd even get, a chair out there. It doesn't seem, I mean, given the type of space being proposed on the main level with the pergola and whatnot, that seems to be where I would say 99% of the occupants are going to be. But to your question, I feel like those balconies are more of an architectural decorative feature than anything. But I could see it, like if it were used in in an excessive way, I do see how there could be some privacy issues with respect to the neighbor.
Well, it's double the size, right? So they've got the outdoor space already. And so thinking that this actually ties into variance number 4 and 6, and this, the balcony is actually on the second level itself, and it's double the size from 3.8 to 6.41, over double the size, so it's like 60% more. Would you all be in favor of, I'm looking at the rest of it being sort of minor, but just that one piece that worries me.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, they could be Juliet balconies where there would be actually no actual physical stepping out to, they're very narrow. They're 1.48 meters narrow.
My concern too with privacy screening, I mean, that's, you're putting something there, it's sort of intended as an architectural feature, a design element, and then to kind of toss up a privacy screen on a small balcony. I don't know. I mean, I'll speak as an architect. I'd probably revise the balconies to avoid the privacy screening because I think visually it does more harm to the integrity of the design. But I don't have concerns of privacy, just given the nature of the balconies. But I do see in other contexts a balcony like that could be of concern. But in this case, given that they're more of architectural features off of the bedrooms and there's a substantial outdoor space off of the main level, I'm satisfied that those will not present a privacy or onlook, or undue privacy or onlook, I should say. Okay. But that's my thought on it. Is it? Let's just confirm. Is 6 square meters combined or each?
I'm concerned because I'm seeing that I thought it was each. Unless it is combined, then I can understand that, but I'm looking at 6.41 meters each is how I'm interpreting this. So to me, that's not small. It doesn't seem to me like a Juliet balcony.
They're narrow and long. They're 4.47 meters long and 1.48 meters wide.
Okay, so it's the times by times, that's, okay.
You'd be lucky to
I
fit a
understand.
chair,
Yeah, okay,
and then
understood.
you'd be kind of crawling around it to get like
No, they're 5 feet wide.
width. I mean, but the depth, right? You
The
put
depth
put
is
some.
5 feet. They're deep, they're not that narrow.
Can maybe staff pull up the drawings of that, just for us to
Yeah.
sort of take a look at together and see the measurements?
4 feet 10, they say, so it's just under 5 feet.
So that could hold a chair and a table.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So
I
yeah,
just feel like that's the only one that I would worry about.
Fair enough.
To say, look, the rest of it does seem minor to me, but just that one point, and that would sort of eliminate, number 6 as well as, the concerns for both being in the rear. You can do other things as a decorative feature. I mean, we're not here to design.
Oh,
it,
no, I
right?
know, for sure.
But,
I mean, that's where the substantially in accordance with comes into play, right? Like, I think they
Yeah.
take that and they can revise accordingly if that's either by reducing the balcony size or by implementing a condition on privacy screening.
I mean,
They just
for
want to
me, I
provide a
would-
little bit
If
of
you'll allow me,
latitude for,
So
I can make a suggestion if you'll allow me.
we shouldn't.
we'd have to go at,
We could basically, if you want, with the motion, and we go with the maximum permitted balcony size. That's one option, but
That's my suggestion.
yeah, so, just to limit the. Yeah, and I think that helps to assuage some of the concerns of privacy from the immediate neighbor as well, in their backyard. Okay, so actually, if we just, if I could just, the comment that you made, Mr. Fazeli, was to,
I made a comment that, related to my colleague's concern, that I said, well, the option would be basically to refuse that variance, and they have like a permitted.
okay. Do we have a motion? Sure.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. That was really good. I'll make a motion. So based on, what Mr. Rose had indicated, looking at this, I do understand, and I think I understand the application. Just in terms of echoing probably what the neighbors have said, I do still have concerns about variance number 4. And so as a result of that, and that would also tackle variance number 6 if we do look at variance number 4. So all in all, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application, subject to the following conditions and changes. So approved with the refusal of variance number 3, and by refusing,
Hold on.
sorry, number 4,
Yep.
sorry. Variance number 4, and with that, it would automatically eliminate variance number 6. And
why?
Sorry, because it would be 4 separate balconies, so that will remain, that there is 2 balconies in the rear. There will be no balconies in the rear, so.
But is
I
the
think,
issue with the
no,
number
it's
of
not going to
balconies, or-
change.
No.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Sorry.
I think it's, number 6 wouldn't be
Wouldn't be
removed, no.
No, sorry, I'm
That's okay.
I'm confused. I meant to say that it remains, so there'll still be 4 balconies, sorry. And it's variance number 4 that will be refused.
Yeah.
So I'll motion to approve this application, subject to variance number 4 being refused, and subject to forestry. TRCA had no objections. Did they have any conditions? I don't think I recall seeing.
Yeah, I see TRCA.
Right, and ravine and natural features did not have any further
They do,
condition
yeah. I do. I
advisory.
initially said we were recommending deferral. I think they were looking for some additional work to be done.
Yeah, so I'm not making it subject to that, because we're not deferring.
Mr. Chair, can I just have that repeated fully, please?
Yeah. Can we?
So-
And sorry, can I ask staff to pull up the TRCA?
The TRCA doesn't have a concern, I believe, anymore, but there are ravine conditions if
The review-
approved.
Yeah. So would you like to include those ravine conditions noted in the?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just for clarity, can we just have the full motion?
Yeah.
Motion to approve this application, subject to refusal of variance number 4, subject to forestry and TRCA conditions.
Our ravine natural.
Sorry, ravine and natural features. I'm getting confused now. I have it written down as, okay.
Of course,
ravine
it's
and
subject to the recommendations noted in the ravine report. Okay. Okay. Okay, do I have a second for that motion? Okay, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries, is unanimous.
Thank you.
Yes, let's go back to number 9. Okay, 135 Cameron Avenue. The application is to legalize and maintain a rear yard deck with 2 variances for rear deck projection and rear deck setback. On file, I have material from the applicant, as well as a letter from 139 Cameron, a letter of support from 133 Cameron, and letters of concern from 2 unknown individuals.
Hi, okay.
Yes, yeah, and so let's pull up that late staff report and go back to the agent. Have you had a chance to review the report?
I've had a chance to talk with my client regarding the upload of this report.
Okay.
So because the original submission due date was, I believe, on the 7th, we've chosen to, or regarding this, we've chosen to ask you to disregard, and the owner will come up on in person and in session to talk about it as well. I'd like to first just go through the points of the variance bylaws,
Okay.
as well as share the precedents for previous decks that have been constructed due to similar variances.
Okay. Just be mindful that the time allocated between yourself and the owner is shared. I will provide some latitude, but just please keep that in mind.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. So firstly, I'd like to say that this is an existing deck, and that currently it does not extend past the existing building. So the variance of 1, 2 of the rear deck projection, as well as the rear deck setback. We have looked for precedents on the same road of Cameron Avenue and found that in the past there have been variances that have been approved for the properties of 92 to 96, which are to the east, which have deck projections that are actually higher or greater than our current one, which is 3.46 meters. As well as parallel to the street, there's Florence Avenue, which has side yard setbacks that have been approved of 1.8 meters as well. So that's our current west lot setback is 1 meter and 0.93 meters from the east lot line. Right. And the owner, my client, has also received immediate neighbor 133 a letter of support regarding the current deck that is not affecting them at all. They have zero concerns, as well as my client has also reached out to the other immediate neighbors, and none of them have expressed concerns over the current deck. So regarding the two letters of rejection that were anonymous, I believe that these, we are not sure where they came from. They could be neighbors that are not even affected at all. And as I said before, my client has already spoken to immediate neighbors and they have zero concerns. I'd like to also bring up the point of a previous COA case from earlier today of a new deck construction that was seeking variance of the same bylaw, that's 569-2013, of the same setbacks, and they were also approved. Thank you.
Is he done?
All done? Just a quick follow-up question, if I may. I'm just curious, you've submitted a photo from the deck, but if this is an as-built, why not submit as part of your evidence photos of the actual deck?
I believe these photos were requested from the building examiner assigned, and they wanted to see the actual setbacks. So my client the owner has actually taken these photos from that perspective to show that there is room for privacy and that it doesn't affect any neighbors.
Is there more than one photo?
I believe there were multiple uploaded, but I believe the owner was the one who.
I'll ask the applicant as well as staff if there are any additional photos of the as-built deck. If there are, let's pull those up. I just also want to be mindful that we're not introducing evidence in the middle of a hearing. Okay, and yeah, please, if you can just state your name and address.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rem Mayer, and I'm at 135 Cameron Avenue. I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, thank you.
With regard to your question, the ask was they wanted to see the trees on the lot. When I moved in, which was exactly last May, there were absolutely no plants whatsoever on the lot, not in the front and not in the backyard. I have planted 23 trees, about 80 boxwoods, about 24 hydrangeas, grasses, and the whole bit. Very conscious about the aesthetic. The deck will have a privacy screen, just as it was asked by 139 if it's going to be approved. Just to give you context, I'm new to Toronto. I'm a single dad with 3 children. And the deck would be an extension. 2 of them have, special needs. Very, very compliant. I feel I'm being prejudiced against with the tardiness of the letter and the inaccuracy in the letter. I just had a chance to go outside to review it since you divulged that the letter was submitted, and it's erroneous because as my agent stated, there's not only a few on Cameron that have been approved with bigger projections earlier today as well, on Florence, which is a parallel street, on Bogart Avenue as well. Not sure, so not only I feel I'm prejudiced against, I'm respectful, but I feel it's unjust. I had a couple of other, experiences. It's aesthetically pleasing. I have a live camera. You can see the deck if you would like. On my phone, I also have pictures. In one of the anonymous objection letter, they were saying that the deck cast a shadow. I took pictures, but I was told I cannot upload anything. I don't know this process. I took pictures of the neighbor. who backs onto the park. There's no shadow, despite that they're having a big tree. The property that is immediately east to me, 133, not only they are okay with it, but they would be the one that diagonally would look at the park. So if anyone should have a problem, it would be them if they thought it would be obstructed. And lastly, I would end the people at the backyard. Not only they did not bring forth any objections, but their view is not obstructed because they're backing on to me, as you can see by the picture. This is the length of my yard, and to get to their yard, it's the same length to get to their backyard. So I will end with that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, or my agent.
Thank you, thank you. Any
Sorry,
questions?
through you, Mr. Chair, just out of procedural fairness, the applicant does have the right to ask for deferral if he thinks he's been prejudiced by the late staff report in any way.
Fair enough. So you've heard that, so that is an option for you. It seems to me, and I'll just go back to the applicant. It seems to me that you feel it's something that we should make a decision on today, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay. Okay. So
Like I said, it's the first home that I own in Toronto. I work downtown. It's the first time. I'm a single dad with my 3 kids. So I don't know the process. I think it's straightforward. There's precedents, etc.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions at this time?
Just
We do have one.
A quick question for you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining all of that. And, I do agree with you in terms of procedural fairness, that you should have received that well in advance, that staff report. You did mention something that was also really convincing, to the fact that to the back of you, there's been no complaints, and there's one neighbor to one side of you, is it the east side, 133?
Correct.
That is in favor of it. There's not been a concern there, but you did want to put privacy screens on east and west side.
Correct.
Regardless. Thank you. That's
Absolutely.
what I needed to know.
And just to illustrate a point, 133 is on this side. If you look at the picture that is in front of you, the park is behind my neighbor to this side. So they would be, if anything would be obstructed, it would be their obstructing due to the park. Very, very considerate, and even the sheer should get carbon credit for all the trees that honestly that I planted at the front and at the back. Yeah.
And okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Is this a newer house that's been built on the property, and the deck is going off the main floor, like off the, I don't know?
The kitchen, yes,
family?
off the main floor, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. And you wouldn't be opposed to the introduction of privacy screening, I think, as it was suggested?
No, I would
by
like that,
neighbors.
actually. It's my intention to put on both sides. And I'll take your direction because I'm flexible, but my plan was to put opaque glass. And if I heard someone to say 1.5 meters, if that is the requirement, if you tell me whatever it is, on a previous case, not on my case, I don't know, but I would adhere to whatever you say in terms of that. That has been my intention, and I intend to honor it.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question.
Yes, Ms. Martin.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
just to clarify, your main floor is around 9 to 10 feet above finished grade at the back? Like, it's a raised deck, right?
It is because I have a walkout.
Okay.
It's a
I just
walkout,
wanted
just
to
like my neighbor
clarify.
does too. The neighbor 133 is the same because it was the lot. Originally, it was because it's an older neighborhood that the lot was severed into
Yeah,
two. So we have the 2 identical lots.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that, because even though it's coming out of the main level, it's actually a raised deck.
Correct, ma'am.
Sorry?
On the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to move us into committee. Yes, Ms. Sankar?
Seeing
Peralta?
that no hands are going up, and I know folks are hungry, I'll put forward a motion. I do believe that, given the staff report, asking, for this and him not having the due process for that, it was still a huge consideration. But looking at the application and seeing that it actually mirrors what one neighbor is doing, and they've got the same sort of setup per se, and that you're willing to do privacy screens, and that it's really not impacting directly within the vicinity of that around you, and a picture is 1,000 words. I do believe that this meets the 4 tests in my eyes. I'll put forward a motion to approve this application.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Subject to the privacy screens on either side, that's 1.5 meters standard and length of your choice.
Okay. And just to clarify, that's on the east and west side of
East
the...
and west side of the deck.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second? Okay, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The motion is approved, passes, and the application is approved. Thank you. Yeah, and nice job with the planting, I might say, at the back. Just direct your questions towards staff. They'll get you sorted. Let's move on to the last application of the morning. We are on item number 11, 160 Albertus Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a 2-story rear addition to the existing 2-story detached dwelling and add a new 3rd floor. We have a variance before us for building length and a variance for FSI. I also have material from the applicant, as well as form letters of support from 86, 112, 116, 134, 154, 158, and 172 Albertus Avenue. Do we have the agent with us?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Meher Manius.
Your address, sir?
Number 1 Teakwood Grove, Toronto, N3B 2H9.
Okay, I don't see any other speakers that are registered. I'm going to ask my colleagues whether they require a full presentation. Yeah, it doesn't appear we need a presentation. I will provide you an opportunity to say anything if you wish, but it looks like we're ready to move right into committee with this one.
I'm just going to make one comment. Just the building length is actually 0.5 meters of it is due to the building being set further back from the 2 adjoining neighbors. So the actual physical building length of the 1st floor is 15.4 meters. The 2nd floor is 14 meters, which complies. And the 3rd floor is 12.17. So part of it is due to the existing condition of the house being pushed further back from where the 2 adjoining neighbors are. So it's a bit of technical in nature. So the variance is only the main floor addition.
Okay.
And it's in keeping with other variances approved in the neighborhood.
Okay, just to clarify though, you are not revising the variances. You're just providing planning rationale.
No, this is just clarification as to why we have the variance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if there's no questions, let's move into committee. Yes.
I can bring forward a motion to approve this application. I think it meets the 4 tests for the Committee of Adjustment, and I don't believe there are any other conditions.
Nothing? No?
No, not that I
Okay,
have
so
written down.
motion for approval without condition. I have a second by Ms. Sankar Peralta. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The motion carries. The application is approved. That concludes our morning session. The time is now 1:30. We will resume at 2:30 for our afternoon session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.